Sup, my fellas. Don't forget to leave feedback, and enjoy the story. The city streets were calmer than ever. Crowds of people frequented the cafeteria every day. Gavin, our protagonist, lay face down on the table. His best friend noticed he was sleeping, and rushed to wake his friend so he could at least shovel down a hot meal. Suddenly, the protagonist woke up, smelling the delicious smell of food. Gavin began furiously grabbing everything in sight. The other cafeteria patrons froze in amazement. Gavin couldn't believe he'd actually been reincarnated. The protagonist's friend thought he was crazy, but MC persistently pestered him with the story of how he died of starvation in the ice apocalypse. The protagonist was glad that his comrade Yahello was still alive. Having learned the real date, a boy realized that time was running out. After all, in half a month, this entire cozy world would plunge into a glacial hell, where minus 50 degrees would become the new norm. Yahello continued to doubt Gavin's words, but he persistently asked for any help. Suddenly, the guys noticed Xenia, MC's ex-girlfriend, and her new boyfriend, walking casually toward the cafeteria. As it turned out, Gavin had sheltered her during the apocalypse, and treated her like a goddess while he himself was starving, but in return, she betrayed him again, so even his death is connected to her. Seeking revenge, our protagonist hit Xenia's new boyfriend. After all, the apocalypse wasn't just a disaster, but also an excellent chance to learn some basic skills. Ignoring his ex-girlfriend, Gavin decided to move on with his only companion, Yahello. His main goal was to get as much money as possible to stock up on supplies and gain an advantage before the apocalypse. Yahello excitedly asks when Gavin became so strong. Xenia rages that Gavin hurt Zack and threatens that he will regret it. She orders Gavin to kneel and apologize to Zack, saying she will never forgive him otherwise. Gavin slaps Xenia as well, demanding who she thinks she is. Zack roars that he will use all his power to crush Gavin like an ant. Gavin immediately kicks Zack again, making him vomit blood mid-charge. Gavin swiftly grabs something from Zack's pocket as he collapses. Holding a small spray bottle, Gavin smirks that he knew he would find it, while Zack panics and asks what he is doing. Zack desperately rushes at him, shouting to give it back. Gavin taunts him, asking how many girls he has harmed with this spray. Zack denies knowing what he means and lunges to seize it. Gavin sprays the substance directly into Zack's face, and Zack realizes in horror what it is. Overwhelmed by the drug, Zack howls in agony as Xenia worries what is happening to him. Zack, eyes wild, tells Xenia to stay away while she anxiously asks what is wrong. A close-up shows Zack's pupils shrinking crazily as the aphrodisiac takes over. Losing control, Zack pounces violently towards Xenia. In his frenzy, he rips Xenia's dress open, exposing her lingerie. Xenia panics, reminding him they are still in the cafeteria. Zack continues tearing her clothes while Xenia screams for help as bystanders watch. Gavin calmly tells Yahello their 5 minutes are up and it is time to leave, while Yahello wonders what on earth is happening to Zack. Gavin explains the spray is a powerful aphrodisiac Zack has used on many girls, some driven to suicide, and says he is just giving Zack his own medicine. Yahello worries Zack might call the police, but Gavin says Zack will never dare expose his crimes, especially with so many victims. Gavin adds that Zack's pride as vast dragon group's heir ensures he will seek personal revenge instead. Yahello agrees that Zack will likely only retaliate in private. Leaving the cafeteria, Yahello asks where they are going next. Gavin replies with a smile that they are going to sell his house. The scene shifts to a real estate agency called Love Your Home Realty, as Yahello calls after Gavin. At the agency, Yahello protests that this is the only house Gavin's parents left him, but Gavin firmly signs papers to sell it. Gavin thinks that with 3.1 million cash from the sale he must stockpile supplies before the frozen apocalypse to gain an advantage. The realtor remarks that housing prices are rising and sees no reason for such a rush, but completes the transaction. Gavin drags Yahello out, saying they are off to the next stop, while Yahello wonders what they will do now. Gavin happily answers that they are going to spend money. They arrive at a large supermarket. Gavin orders 1,000 units each of rice, flour, and cooking oil. He also orders 10,000 cans of each variety of canned food. A shocked store clerk asks if he is sure about such a huge order. Gavin confidently confirms, while Yahello jokes that Gavin seems to be stocking an entire supermarket. Gavin asks if the store can deliver all his purchases, and the clerk assures him they will handle delivery and unloading. Gavin asks Yahello about his family's unused suburban warehouse, implying he will store the goods there. He tells Yahello to lend him the warehouse and provide the address so he can keep buying more supplies. 2 female classmates recognize Gavin, gossiping that he was cheated on by Xenia and wondering what he is doing in this members-only supermarket. Gavin then orders multiple Alienware computers plus several TVs and game consoles. He reasons that when the icy apocalypse comes they will be stuck indoors, and thus need plenty of entertainment. The clerk happily calls him their biggest client of the year as the 2 girls gape in disbelief. The girls calculate that the electronics alone cost hundreds of thousands and marvel at how Gavin can afford it. Gavin enthusiastically tells the clerk to pack all the appliances and every down jacket in stock. One girl muses that Gavin must secretly be rich since he has already spent over $1 million. She concludes he is likely a hidden second-generation rich kid and decides they should seize this opportunity to cozy up to him. Gavin thinks he has nearly finished preparations for the apocalypse, and now needs to focus on something even more important. He hears a familiar feminine voice greeting him, saying it has been a while. Sharon Zeller and Jolene Little approach Gavin, flattering his improved looks. Gavin remembers that in his last life Sharon and Jolene formed a predatory gang during the apocalypse, and once robbed and stripped him, nearly freezing him to death. Sharon invites the seemingly quiet Gavin to eat with them, acting intimate. Gavin agrees and tells Yahello to escort all the purchased goods back to the warehouse because he has something else to do. Sharon and Jolene privately scheme to bleed Gavin dry, planning to drag him to a luxury restaurant. Gavin, between the two women, cheerfully says he is starving as they lead him out. A shot shows the upscale restaurant building they head toward. Outside the restaurant, the women brag about how exclusive and expensive it is and urge Gavin inside, claiming they only bring special people there. Inside the elegant dining hall, the women ask Gavin how he finds the food. Looking at the menu, Gavin comments that it seems quite expensive. The women insist it is not expensive at all and offer to order for everyone if he will not. Jolene immediately orders the most luxurious items: caviar, top-grade Wagyu beef, Antarctic lobster, and more. After gorging themselves, Sharon, feeling pleasantly stuffed, revels in how satisfying the extravagant meal was. She asks Gavin how his meal was, and he politely says it was delicious and that he is stepping out for a moment. Gavin heads alone to the front desk, where the cashier greets him. The cashier states the total of $18,800 and asks how he will pay, but Gavin instead orders 100 tables of the exact same dishes to pick up in 10 days. She is stunned and asks if he really means 100 tables worth. Gavin smiles and offers his card, saying he can pay in advance. Later, he plans how during the apocalypse he will eat these feasts slowly instead of canned food every day, confident he will figure out preservation within 10 days. Meanwhile, Sharon and Jolene assume Gavin is upfront dutifully paying the bill and plan to have him buy them designer handbags afterward. The cashier returns his card, confirming the order for 100 tables and mentioning the bill for their current meal. Gavin casually tells her to have Sharon and Jolene pay for today's meal themselves. Walking away, Gavin notes he has nearly spent the house sale money and decides to borrow more through online loan platforms. He opens a lending app named XX Loan on his phone. Later, Gavin strolls outside happily, thinking he has already obtained $2.7 million from 36 small loan apps and intends to squeeze more. His phone rings with an incoming call from Sharon Zeller. Back at the restaurant, an angry Sharon demands over the phone to know where Gavin is. Gavin cheerfully replies that something came up and he is heading home. Smirking, he asks why he should be the one to pay the restaurant bill. Sharon shouts that since he invited them to eat, he is obviously supposed to pay. Gavin reminds her they dragged him there, ordered all the food themselves, and that it has nothing to do with him. Sharon, furious, asks how he can call himself a man and expects him to cover the extremely expensive table of food. Gavin points out that he had warned them about the high prices and that they were the ones determined to order the most expensive dishes, so they must accept the consequences. Sharon rants to the restaurant staff that Gavin is a broke loser refusing to pay. Gavin, still on the phone, tells her to ask the restaurant whether he just ordered 100 identical tables of the same meal, which the cashier confirms. Realizing he must have money, Sharon anxiously begs Gavin to come back and pay the current bill too. Gavin hangs up, declaring he will not waste money on rotten idiots like them. Back in the restaurant, Sharon and Jolene panic because Gavin refuses to pay and they cannot afford the bill, while the cashier firmly states that the restaurant does not allow running a tap. The angry woman vows to call Hunter so they can lure Gavin over that night and teach him a lesson. Gavin stands outside a lottery sales office, considering his next move. Remembering his past life win, Gavin plans to use his clear memory of the lottery numbers to buy many tickets and fund his initial plans. Gavin purchases a lottery ticket matching the remembered numbers. Confident, Gavin thinks he only needs to wait 2 days for the lottery results. Gavin returns to Yahello and calls out that he is back. Yahello complains Gavin left him working and eating instant noodles while he played around, and Gavin promises to take him somewhere exciting that night. At a warehouse full of goods, Yahello questions why Gavin is spending so much money on supplies. Gavin explains that when the coming frozen apocalypse arrives, these supplies will be life-saving and food will control desperate people, asking Yahello to trust him. Yahello says Gavin seems sane, but he still finds Gavin's apocalypse talk unbelievable. Gavin calmly says that in a few days Yahello will understand he is telling the truth. Two thugs approach and ask if the boy they see is Gavin Clark. Gavin confirms his identity, and asks if they are working for Hunter Walsh. The bald leader accuses Gavin, a broke student, of flirting with Hunter's woman and threatens him. Yahello nervously warns the thugs that he will call the police if they try anything. The bald thug mocks the idea of calling the police and threatens to break Yahello's legs first. Gavin stops Yahello, saying there is no need to involve the police. The thugs sneer that Gavin is a coward but are glad he is not calling the cops as they advance with clubs. Yahello reveals his father owns Parker's building materials and begs them to spare Gavin. The bald thug politely says they will not touch the young Master Parker but insists they must still go after Gavin. Yahello shouts for Gavin to run and offers to hold the attackers off. The bald thug shoves Yahello aside and charges Gavin, declaring he will crack Gavin's skull for provoking Hunter. Yahello screams Gavin's name in panic as the blow comes. Gavin easily dodges the swing, thinking the thug is slow and obviously untrained. Gavin counters with a powerful kick that sends the bald thug flying and disarms him. Injured and bleeding, the bald thug angrily calls Gavin a brat and tries to recover. Gavin grabs the bat and smashes it into the thug's face, knocking him away. The bald thug's teeth are violently shattered by the impact. Seeing their leader's teeth destroyed, the remaining gang members fear Gavin's ruthlessness. Gavin confidently invites all of them to attack him together. The others roar for everyone to charge and kill Gavin. Gavin gleefully swings the bat and knocks multiple attackers down, finding the fight exhilarating. Yahello is shocked that the Gavin he knows is now defeating 6 people alone. With the thugs groaning on the ground, Gavin asks if they have had enough and they surrender. Gavin says if they are done, each of them must transfer him 100,000, stunning the blonde thug who protested as extortion. Gavin answers the protest with another painful blow from the bat, making the blonde scream. Gavin coldly tells them that since they came looking for trouble, a beating is not enough, and they must hurry to pay or he will break all their legs. Gavin checks his phone and sees that 600,000 has been successfully transferred to him. Reflecting, Gavin notes his mindset changed after surviving an apocalypse and that people like Hunter committed atrocities then, so being ruthless to them now is justified. Gavin snaps out of his thoughts and tells Yahello he is taking him somewhere truly exciting. At a flashy club, dancers in revealing outfits perform on stage. Inside the club, Yahello happily says he loves the place and wants to relax there after the day's events. Gavin approaches the barwoman, says he is here to deliver something to her boss Mr. Jacobs, and she goes to call him. Later, Gavin and Yahello walk down a corridor lined with stern bodyguards in suits and sunglasses. Yahello, dizzy with fear, exclaims that this is Gavin's idea of excitement, while Gavin calmly asks if it is exciting enough. Yahello admits his heart is pounding and panicking, demands to know where they are and why they are there. The bodyguards respectfully announce Mr. Lowe's arrival as Gavin and Yahello stand between them. Mr. Lowe appears, asks if they are here to make a delivery, and notes he has never seen Gavin before. Gavin says this is their first meeting and that he came because he heard Mr. Lowe was receiving goods. Suspicious, Mr. Lowe points out they are empty-handed and asks where the goods are. Gavin replies that the goods are inside their own bodies, amusing Mr. Lowe, who finds it interesting that someone would deliver themselves. Mr. Lowe then orders his armed men to seize Gavin and Yahello. Surrounded at gunpoint, Yahello desperately begs them not to be rash and again cites his father's position. Terrified, Yahello asks Gavin what is happening and what kind of goods he is selling, while Gavin explains Mr. Lowe traffics human organs and that their bodies' organs are the goods. Yahello freaks out at the mention of organs and shouts that it is impossible not to panic. Gavin challenges Mr. Lowe, saying they are offering goods and asking if the infamous buyer dares to purchase them. Gavin proposes that for 10 million all the organs in his body will belong to Mr. Lowe. Mr. Lowe counters by offering only 5 million, saying a crackdown has driven prices down. Gavin agrees on one condition: Mr. Lowe must pay him first, and he will deliver his body in 3 days, while Mr. Lowe warns him not to try running. Mr. Lowe tells his subordinate to have Gavin and Yahello sign indenture contracts. Gavin insists there should be 2 contracts and demands one for Yahello as well, while Yahello protests that he does not want to sell. Gavin overrides him, telling the men Yahello is selling too, as Yahello frantically insists he does not need the money. A thug puts a gun to Yahello's head and forces him to sign the contract. Once outside, Yahello angrily accuses Gavin of literally selling him out while claiming to seek excitement together. Gavin brushes it off as trivial and suggests going elsewhere, while Yahello panics about Mr. Lowe's vicious reputation and fears they will be torn apart in 3 days. Gavin explains Mr. Lowe has trafficked countless organs and harmed many people, and confidently predicts that in 3 days Mr. Lowe will die. Yahello is horrified that Gavin plans to take on heavily armed Mr. Lowe, but Gavin says he will next make Yahello believe the apocalypse is real. At a luxury villa complex, a staff member asks Gavin if he only wants to rent that particular villa. Gavin confirms he is set on renting just that one and none of the others. Yahello cannot understand why they are suddenly renting a villa, and Gavin replies that something valuable is inside this one. Gavin recalls that in his past life this villa had the most supplies and a rare apocalyptic opportunity, attracting many desperate people and becoming the place where he eventually died amid horrific loss of humanity. Resolute, Gavin thinks that since he died here in his past life, his new life will begin here. The agent says the owner has declared the villa not for rent, but Gavin offers to pay double the normal rent. She explains the owner is not short of money, yet Gavin immediately raises his offer to 5 times the rent, though she insists money may not solve it. Gavin then offers 10 times the rent and says he can pay the first month immediately. Seeing the huge commission, the agent excitedly promises to persuade the owner to rent the villa to Gavin no matter what it takes. Gavin adds the condition that he wants to completely renovate the house, and the agent readily agrees since it is basically an empty shell. Nearby, a middle-aged woman urges her daughter Xenia to seize an opportunity with Zach Young for the sake of her mother's future. Gavin recognizes Xenia Scott and explains to Yahello that she is here because Zach owns a villa in this complex. Xenia turns and notices Gavin's presence. Xenia angrily accuses Gavin of stalking her, and says she has not even settled accounts with him for what happened last time. Her mother contemptuously calls Gavin a poor lower-class student, and declares Xenia would never be interested in someone like him no matter how far he follows her. Gavin retorts that they are idiots, and asks who is stalking whom, while the mother threatens to complain to his school and the police for his rudeness. Gavin sarcastically says she might as well give him the death penalty, and questions what his renting a house has to do with them. Xenia mocks him, saying she knows he is poor and cannot possibly afford a villa that costs at least $20,000 a month. The agent returns, happily informing Gavin that the rent has been set at $25,000 a month. Xenia's mother is shocked that the supposedly poor boy has actually rented a villa there. Xenia stubbornly insists Gavin only rented the villa to get close to her, and tells him to give up because it will not work. Yahello calls Xenia a delusional princess, and Gavin and he comment that her attitude is insane. Xenia's mother dismissively says that even a rent of $25,000 a month is not high enough for Gavin to qualify as a proper simp for her daughter, and leads Xenia away. The agent reminds Gavin he agreed to pay 10 times the rent, meaning the first month totals $250,000, and he readily agrees to pay immediately. Hearing about tenfold rent, Xenia and her mother exclaim in disbelief, assuming Gavin is just putting on an act since they cannot imagine him having that much money. Gavin shows his phone and announces that the transfer of $250,000 has been sent. The agent hands Gavin the keys, saying the house is his to renovate as he pleases, and Gavin cheerfully heads off with Yahello. Outside, Xenia's mother wonders if they misjudged Gavin's background after seeing the payment, while Xenia insists it is impossible since he is an orphan and vows to investigate. Later, Gavin asks Yahello to help contact the boss of Heaven's Rainbow Decor, the city's largest renovation company, whom Yahello's family knows. Gavin requests that Yahello's father arrange an appointment so he can renovate the villa, and Yahello is stunned that Gavin wants to renovate an unfurnished place he already overpaid for. Gavin tells Yahello to stop questioning him and just set up the appointment, promising he will understand that night. Yahello reports that his father pulled strings so Heaven's Rainbow's boss postponed other work to meet Gavin personally. Gavin praises Yahello's father's connections and jokingly says he will repay him with a truckload of instant noodles, to Yahello's dismay. Gavin confidently says that soon Yahello's father will adore instant noodles, hinting at their future value. At Heaven's Rainbow Decor's building, a receptionist asks Gavin and Yahello to wait for the CEO. Elsewhere, Xenia and her mother arrive at the same company, pleased that Zach is funding their renovation and trusting Heaven's Rainbow's reputation. Xenia then notices Gavin's group at the reception and listens as the staff asks whether they have an appointment. Xenia accuses Gavin of relentlessly following her even to this renovation company, insisting his efforts will never move her. Gavin complains to Yahello about running into this pair of idiots again. Yahello casually tells Xenia that Gavin is also renovating a place here, while she scoffs at the idea of someone renovating property he does not even own. Gavin introduces himself to the receptionist as Gavin Clark and states he has an appointment, and she respectfully asks him to wait. Watching, Xenia and her mother doubt Gavin is really there for renovation and assume he is pretending to be richer than he is. The CEO, Mr. Zhao, arrives and asks where the client with the appointment is. The receptionist points directly to Gavin, with Xenia and her mother standing beside him. Xenia's mother is thrilled, thinking Mr. Zhao has personally come thanks to Zach Young's influence. She smugly tells Gavin that Xenia's higher status is evident because the company boss is greeting her while Gavin has to wait. Xenia enthusiastically greets Mr. Zhao, saying it is a pleasure to meet him. Mr. Zhao, confused, asks if she is the one with the appointment. Xenia confidently claims she is the client who booked him. Mr. Zhao asks if her name is Gavin Clark, leaving Xenia stunned as she clarifies she is Xenia Scott instead. Mr. Zhao brusquely tells her to step aside if she is not Gavin Clark and stops her from interfering. Gavin steps forward, introduces himself as Gavin Clark, and addresses Mr. Zhao. Impressed by Gavin's youth, Mr. Zhao invites him inside to discuss details. Outside, Xenia and her mother fume and try to rationalize that Yahello's wealthy family must have arranged this treatment rather than Gavin's own influence. A sign indicates they are now in the manager's office. In the office, Mr. Zhao warmly asks Gavin what kind of renovation he wants. Gavin explains that he wants to renovate a villa. Mr. Zhao says renovating a villa is a relatively small job, estimating typical budgets and offering to have his design director handle the details. Gavin instead asks Mr. Zhao to personally oversee their project. Mr. Zhao admits he only personally manages major projects because he is very busy. Gavin declares that his project qualifies as major, prompting Mr. Zhao to ask his budget. Gavin casually states a budget of at least $30 million, surprising but intriguing Mr. Zhao. Mr. Zhao is shocked and exclaims at the idea of spending $30 million on renovation. Still stunned, Mr. Zhao double-checks whether Gavin really means $30 million, not $3 million. Gavin calmly confirms that the budget truly is $30 million. When the design director arrives offering to handle the guests, Mr. Zhao waves him off and insists on managing the project himself. Mr. Zhao remarks that such money could buy an entire villa and asks what Gavin intends to turn the place into. Gavin presents his detailed blueprints and asks Mr. Zhao to review them. After reading the plans, Mr. Zhao is aghast, realizing Gavin wants to construct something like a heavily fortified fortress or bunker. Gavin says he can increase the budget if necessary and insists Heaven's Rainbow is the only firm capable of finishing his fortress-like design within half a month. Mr. Zhao reads the specifications: independent water, extreme cold AC, ventilation and filtration, and thick steel plating, and notes it would be an impenetrable war bunker, remarking that anyone would think it was preparation for an apocalypse. Gavin tells him to treat it as such, offering $20 million up front and another $5 million after completion, with the final payment 3 days after construction ends. Tempted, Mr. Zhao agrees enthusiastically, vowing to mobilize all company resources to build Gavin's safe house within half a month. Leaving, Yahello yells that spending $35 million to renovate a rented villa is insane. Gavin replies that money will soon be worthless and urges Yahello to convince his father to prepare as well, while Yahello demands to know where Gavin got so much cash. Gavin admits he borrowed 10 million from shady lenders and jokes that the apocalypse had better be real, or he will never recover financially. Xenia approaches, assuming Gavin's actions are meant to impress her, and provocatively asks how much he spent on renovations. Annoyed, Gavin thinks it is none of her business and rejects the idea that he is trying to attract her. Xenia's mother boasts that Xenia spent a full 1 million on renovations and taunts Gavin to show him what real wealth looks like. Yahello counters that Gavin has spent 35 million on his renovations, making their 1 million insignificant. Xenia bursts into mocking laughter, saying 35 million is absurd and accusing them of bragging ridiculously. Gavin smirks and asks whether, if he truly spends 35 million, Xenia will be willing to call him dad. Xenia insists she has already investigated and knows Gavin only sold a single modest house worth at most 3 million, accusing him of pretending and warning he may end up with nothing. The older woman mockingly promises to call the man her father if he really spent 35 million. As Gavin leaves, the female staffer calls him back because he forgot his contract. The older woman eagerly grabs the contract, intending to read the amount and expose Gavin as a liar. Looking at the document, she is shocked and terrified by what she sees. Her daughter smugly asks if the contract amount is tiny, assuming Gavin has little money. The woman, sweating, admits the contract really is for 35 million. Refusing to accept it, she yells that the contract must be fake because Gavin could not have that much money. Gavin's companion firmly states the contract is genuine, signed by their boss, and warns the woman of legal consequences for slander. Gavin reminds the woman of her earlier promise and demands she call him daddy, which enrages her. Gavin suddenly slaps the woman aside. As the shocked daughter supports her mother, Gavin's friend remarks that the slap was satisfying and suggests they leave. The red-haired daughter furiously vows revenge on Gavin for humiliating her mother. Night falls over the upscale villa neighborhood where Gavin is staying. Back at the villa, Gavin's chubby friend asks why they have returned. Gavin replies that his next goal is to convince everyone the apocalypse is coming. The chubby friend, following Gavin upstairs, says Gavin's recent behavior is so strange that either the apocalypse is real or Gavin has gone mad. Later outside, the chubby friend complains about freezing in midsummer while they have waited 2 hours for something to happen. Checking his phone, Gavin exclaims that the crucial moment is near. A golden meteor streaks across the sky and Gavin declares that it has arrived. Shivering, the friend thinks it is just a shooting star and wonders what Gavin is expecting. Gavin explains that the true apocalypse is still half a month away, but omens like abnormal cold and frequent meteors have already started. The friend panics as one meteor seems to be headed directly toward them. Gavin internally recalls that such meteors grant abilities, and that this neighborhood later became a survivor base because several fell here and empowered people. He remembers that, in his past life, a similar meteor landed in an empty villa and was first discovered by a thief. Terrified, the chubby friend yells that the meteor is going to hit them and urges Gavin to run. Instead, Gavin eagerly lunges toward the falling meteor, determined to seize this opportunity. His friend screams that Gavin must have a death wish. The meteor engulfs Gavin in a blinding explosion of light. Seeing the blast, the chubby friend assumes Gavin has been crushed and is dead. Gavin reappears surrounded by golden energy, noting that he gained a skill that multiplies his physical abilities 5-fold, which is more than enough for now. Wreathed in light, Gavin asks Yahello if he finally believes him. Yahello stares in disbelief, realizing Gavin is alive. Gavin explains he survived and has awakened a special power that makes him far stronger. Yahello, unconvinced, says Gavin looks no different and asks how he is stronger. Gavin silently places a hand on Yahello's shoulder. Effortlessly lifting Yahello with one arm, Gavin shocks him. Holding his friend aloft, Gavin again asks if he believes him now. Yahello, amazed that someone over 200 pounds was raised with one hand, concedes Gavin's strength. Gavin then hoists Yahello over a balcony, alarming him. Smiling darkly, Gavin orders Yahello to get down. Gavin jumps off the 10-meter height with Yahello still in his grasp while Yahello begs him not to throw his life away. They land with a heavy impact but both remain unharmed. Yahello, stunned, realizes he is completely fine after the fall. Gavin again asks if his friend believes him, and Yahello hurriedly agrees, saying surviving such a jump proves it. Elsewhere, Xenia's mother asks her daughter what she is staring at from the window. Xenia says she saw a shooting star land near Gavin's rented house and spitefully adds she wishes it had crushed him. She then reassures her mother that Zach Young will return soon and will not let Gavin off after their previous conflict. The doorbell rings, drawing the mother's attention. She greets the returning Zach enthusiastically, and he immediately asks where Xenia is. Xenia happily calls out to Zach from inside. Zach slaps Xenia playfully and tells her to shower quickly because he has been pent up for days. When the mother awkwardly reminds him she is still present, Zach crudely orders her to boil water and leave. Xenia stops Zach from rushing, saying she has news that Gavin has also moved into their neighborhood. Enraged, Zach shouts that Gavin dares to show his face before him. The mother claims Gavin rented the villa just to get close to Xenia and urges Zach to drive him away. Zach vows to call and help immediately and make Gavin regret crossing him. On the phone, Zach contacts Biao and introduces himself. The scene shifts to the box club, a boxing gym. In the ring, Biao is encouraged by others to go ahead with another bout. Still on the phone, Zach tells Biao he will pay 200,000 to deal with someone. Biao accepts the job, promising results within 2 hours. He tells his current opponent he has work to do, so he will end the match quickly. The underground boxing champion angrily lashes out, offended that a rookie looks down on him. Biao responds with a single devastating punch that knocks the champion out. Spectators are amazed that Biao, supposedly a rookie, defeated the underground champ in one blow and hail him as a rising boxing king. Back at the villa, Gavin notes that the current strange weather resembles the early phase of an ice age apocalypse. Inside, Yahello laments humanity's grim fate, while Gavin asks if he has decided what to do next. Yahello pledges to follow whatever plan Gavin gives him. Gavin tells him to first return home and convince his father to sell everything. Yahello says his father has assets but would sooner think his son is crazy than believe in an apocalypse. Gavin stresses that in half a month money will be useless, only supplies will matter, so even being the richest man would not help. Resolved, Yahello decides to risk his father's wrath and bankrupt the family to prepare. Gavin suddenly senses something and becomes alert. He hushes Yahello, saying something is wrong. Gavin explains that people have surrounded the villa outside. Outside, Biao's crew confirms they have encircled the house and Biao orders them to break down the door. One thug volunteers and charges the front entrance with a sledgehammer. He grins confidently as he raises the hammer while Biao and others watch. The thug is violently knocked back by the force of the door being opened from inside. Gavin steps out with Yahello and calmly asks who they are. Biao is surprised Gavin sensed them and asks if he is also a trained fighter. Gavin recognizes him and calls him Duan Hubia. Biao is startled that Gavin knows his name. Gavin recalls that in the future Biao will be a powerful ability user, shown cloaked in fiery energy. Narration explains Biao was one of the fortunate who gained abilities after the apocalypse and, unlike many, retained some conscience. Biao states Zack sent him to deal with Gavin and offers a light beating that would only leave him bedridden for half a year. Gavin replies that he will also go easy on Biao and tells him to leave. Angered, Biao charges forward to see what gives Gavin such confidence. Gavin easily dodges and comments that Biao's punch is too slow. Impressed by Gavin's reflexes, Biao attacks again, wanting another exchange. Gavin counters with a swift blow that sends Biao flying. Biao's men are stunned that their boss, who just beat the underground champion, has been knocked down. Biao, struggling up, complains Gavin is abnormal while Gavin calmly asks if he admits defeat. Biao stubbornly declares that no one can make him submit. Gavin responds with a powerful kick to Biao's chest, launching him into the air. Biao lies on the ground and Gavin asks how that feels. Biao admits he was powerless but still refuses to submit. Gavin says it would be boring if Biao gave in too easily and offers to help save Biao's sister if he does a job for him. Shocked that Gavin knows his sister is ill, Biao demands to know how he learned that. A flashback shows Biao sadly watching over his sister in a hospital bed. Gavin explains he knows she has an incurable terminal disease and that Biao risks his life in underground fights to pay for her treatment. Hearing this, Biao asks if Gavin truly can save his sister. Gavin insists he is the only person in the world who knows how to do it, and leaves it to Biao whether to trust him. Convinced by Gavin's strength, Biao agrees and asks what Gavin wants him to do. Gavin instructs Biao to severely beat Zack Young, keep him bedridden for half a month, and extort as much money as possible. Biao silently considers this command. He then rallies his men, ordering them to follow him. When asked if he really believes Gavin, Biao answers that he has no choice because he must seize any hope to save his sister. Meanwhile, Zack assumes Gavin is hospitalized and thinks it is time to proceed with his own plans. In his bedroom, Zack and Xenia engage in foreplay, with Xenia calling him terrible. Loud banging at the door interrupts them, annoying Zack. Xenia's mother goes to the door complaining that someone is disturbing the couple. She opens it to find Biao and his men and demands to know who they are. Biao brusquely pushes past her, telling her to move. She scolds him for his rudeness and questions how he dares intrude there. Biao answers by slapping her aside and telling her to scram. Entering the hall, Biao greets Zack and asks if the job is done. Zack, assuming success, starts to mention the 200,000 payment he intends to transfer. Instead, Biao punches Zack hard, sending his phone flying. Xenia panics and Zack, shocked, yells at Biao for attacking him. Biao orders his subordinates to seize Zack. The men proceed to stomp Zack on the floor. While being beaten, Zack threatens Biao with his family's influence and promises any amount of money if Biao stops. Biao finally orders his men to halt. Zack, bruised but arrogant, thinks Biao has come to his senses and sneers that hitting him was a huge mistake. Biao instead relays Gavin's instructions, telling them to hang Zack up and continue beating him. Horrified, Zack calls Biao insane for turning on him. As they drag Zack away, he realizes. Big bro Clark. Must be Gavin and demands an explanation. Hung upside down, Zack says the most money he can access himself is 10 million, with more requiring family approval. Biao orders him to transfer that 10 million immediately. Later, Yahello receives a text message on his phone. He tells Gavin their counselor announced a practical training outing for the next day and asks if Gavin will join. Gavin initially refuses. When Yahello mentions the training is near the northern news city, Gavin suddenly takes interest. Gavin decides to participate since he planned to scout that area anyway, just as his phone rings. On the call, Biao reports that he forced Zack to hand over 10 million and has transferred the funds to Gavin, who acknowledges receiving it. Gavin visits a lottery betting station. He remembers he still has a lottery ticket and thinks that winning would let him buy many supplies. After checking, he is stunned that the numbers he remembered from his past life did not win this time. Suspecting the cause, he reasons that the butterfly effect is unlikely and concludes that the mysterious director must be acting before him. Accepting this setback, Gavin decides he will need another way to earn big money. The next day, students gather by a bus for practical training, chatting about starting too soon and hoping for good placements. Two female classmates angrily confront Gavin at the bus, accusing him of having the nerve to show up. Gavin calmly asks why he would be afraid to appear. They demand he explain why he supposedly dined and dashed on a 20,000 bill and insist he pay them back or they will be working for a month to repay it. Gavin bluntly asks what their debt has to do with him. The girl in green softens, coquettishly begging Gavin to cover the money and promising they will do anything he wants. The purple-haired girl flirtatiously suggests that if he gives them 20,000, they will not return to the dorm that night. Smiling, Gavin agrees to help but first asks them to lend him 40,000. Realizing he is tricking them, the two girls angrily storm off, shouting that Gavin should just wait. Yahello arrives calling for Gavin, and Gavin, noticing Yahello's puffy eyes, asks why they are so swollen. Yahello explains he tried to warn his dad about the coming apocalypse by crying. Gavin cheerfully asks if Yahello's crying strategy worked. Yahello recounts that his dad ignored him for hours then beat him with a rod, making him cry for real. Gavin comforts Yahello, saying even accepting the apocalypse took Yahello days so his dad will need time too. Counselor Chi Chanong orders all the students onto the bus to depart. The students, including Yahello and Gavin, ride the bus to their internship site. On the bus, Yahello, thirsty from salty food, asks Gavin for water, but Gavin has none. Classmate Chitsuetsue shyly offers Gavin a bottle of water, and he thanks her. Gavin immediately hands the drink to the desperate Yahello, urging him to take it. Chitsuetsue gently brings up Gavin's breakup with Xenia, hoping he is not too sad. Gavin reassures Chitsuetsue that he is glad he saw Xenia's true nature. Chitsuetsue offers Gavin money since she heard Xenia cheated him, but he refuses because her family is poor. Yahello whispers that Chitsuetsue clearly likes Gavin, prompting Gavin to snap at him to just drink. The counselor announces that the bus has arrived at the internship destination. As students disembark, Chi Chanong tells them to exit orderly so he can assign placements. Other students explain there are 3 internship levels, with the 3rd floor best and the 1st floor just menial guard work. Chi Chanong begins reading the names of those assigned to the prestigious 3rd floor. 2 female students celebrate that Hunter secured them 3rd floor posts and fret about the favor they promised him. Chitsuetsue walks ahead, unaware the 2 plotting girls glare at her from behind. The 2 schemers decide Chitsuetsue is an ideal, unprotected rural girl to target and choose her. Chi Chanong next announces the list of students assigned to the 2nd floor. Gavin's group realizes none of their names were called and they have not even made the 2nd floor. The counselor then declares that Yahello, Gavin and Chitsuetsue will all intern on the lowly 1st floor. Chitsuetsue worries they will learn nothing useful stuck on the 1st floor. Other students mock that it is expected for Gavin and Chitsuetsue to be on the 1st floor but surprising for rich Yahello. Gavin confronts Chi Chanong, demanding to know why they were placed on the 1st floor. Chi Chanong insists the placements were fairly arranged by the school and company and tells Gavin he should excel anywhere. Gavin warns that if the counselor is lying after claiming Chinese do not cheat their own, then he is a complete scoundrel. Chi Chanong is outraged that Gavin dares to speak to him like that and hints at expelling him. He defends himself by saying even rich Yahello was put on the 1st floor with poor Gavin, so he is being fair. Yahello explodes, revealing Chi Chanong tried to extort money from his father in exchange for a 3rd floor spot. The furious counselor calls Yahello insolent. Yahello smugly shows his phone, saying he recorded the bribery call and can prove everything. Another student, Wanda, intervenes, accusing Gavin's group of going too far. Wanda lectures them for upsetting the counselor and claims they lack respect for their teacher. The 2 scheming girls back Wanda, saying the counselor worked hard and ingrates like Gavin should not even get internships. Gavin coldly tells Wanda to get lost. Wanda insults Gavin as a lovesick loser dumped by Xenia and demands to know how Gavin dares speak to him that way. Gavin punches Wanda hard in the chest. Enraged, Wanda charges at Gavin, vowing revenge for being hit. Gavin easily catches Wanda's fist mid-attack. Wanda is shocked by how strong Gavin is. Gavin pummels Wanda repeatedly, telling him again to scram. Bruised and terrified, Wanda runs to the counselor claiming Gavin has gone crazy. Gavin continues beating him, asking if he heard the earlier warning. Chi Chanong grabs Gavin, ordering him as a teacher to stop and apologize. Gavin knocks the counselor flying, mocking his claim to be a teacher. Yahello exults that it feels great to see Gavin hit the corrupt counselor. Onlookers are stunned that quiet Gavin is now beating up the counselor. Clutching his swollen face, Chi Chanong angrily expels Gavin from the internship program. Gavin replies that he does not care and threatens to beat the counselor to death if he keeps talking, punctuating it with another blow. With the counselor and Wanda lying on the ground, Gavin tells Yahello it is time to leave. Yahello asks what will happen to Chitsuetsue if they go. Gavin calls out and invites Chitsuetsue to come with them. Meanwhile, the scheming girls suggest to the counselor that Chitsuetsue should move to the 3rd floor to stay with them, while he plots to get Gavin expelled. They coax Chitsuetsue to join them on the 3rd floor, warning that staying near Gavin will ruin her job prospects. Gavin tells Chitsuetsue to go ahead with her internship and to call him if anything happens, and she agrees. Gavin then turns to Yahello, saying it is time to start their real business. At a huge logistics park, Gavin notes this warehouse complex controls daily supplies for all provincial supermarkets. Yahello realizes Gavin plans to secure supplies from here, and Gavin confirms smartly. Yahello frets that although the place has the most goods, they cannot just steal them or even get inside. Gavin notices a hiring area at the warehouse entrance and suggests checking it out. He politely asks the staff if they are hiring. The recruiters reply that they are only taking female workers, not men. Gavin and Yahello are baffled about what to do since men are not accepted. Gavin decides Yahello should fetch Chitsuitsui and bring her to apply instead. Meanwhile, on the third-floor office, workers go about their business as Chi Changdong walks through. Sharon tells Jolene that Hunter called. Mr. Jiang urgently needs a virgin girl. They decide to verify whether naive Chitsuitsui fits that requirement. The women approach Chitsuitsui at her desk and ask how her work is going. Chitsuitsui happily says she has learned many things from Sharon and Jolene and thanks them. They brush off her gratitude, saying classmates should help each other, while hiding darker intentions. Sharon casually asks if Chitsuitsui has ever had a boyfriend, and she shyly admits she has not. Jolene excitedly proposes introducing Chitsuitsui to a boyfriend. Chitsuitsui declines, saying she only wants to earn money, but they insist a rich boyfriend would pay better than any job. When she still resists, they pressure her to at least meet the man and say she can refuse later. Time passes and the story shifts focus to the tall building where this will happen. As they escort Chitsuitsui to Mr. Jiang, she repeats that she does not want to date, but they insist he is a nice person. They present Chitsuitsui to Mr. Jiang, announcing they have brought the girl. Leering at her, Mr. Jiang praises Hunter for finding such a pure-looking girl. Sharon urges Chitsuitsui to greet Mr. Jiang, revealing he is the boyfriend they arranged, shocking her. Mr. Jiang, pleased with their work, promises each woman 30,000 yuan as a reward. Sharon then leaves Chitsuitsui alone with Mr. Jiang, telling him to enjoy while Chitsuitsui begs not to be left. The door slams shut behind Chitsuitsui, trapping her inside the office. Mr. Jiang propositions her, promising even more money than her classmates if she pleases him. Chitsuitsui refuses, warns him she will call the police and backs away. Mr. Jiang laughs that the security team are his friends, so she has no one to report him to. She pleads again to just work peacefully and for him to let her go. He strikes her, knocking the phone from her hand. Mr. Jiang declares that no woman leaves his office unscathed once she enters. The dropped phone is shown to be calling Gavin. Outside, Gavin and Yahello walk when Gavin hears his phone ringing. He sees an incoming call from Chitsuitsui. Gavin answers cheerfully and asks what is wrong. Inside the office, Mr. Jiang stomps and crushes Chitsuitsui's phone to cut the call. He leers that he favors inexperienced girls like her and urges her to accept her fate in exchange for success. Chitsuitsui defiantly says she would rather die than agree and raises a potted plant to defend herself. Gavin, noticing the sudden disconnection, worries something has happened to Chitsuitsui. Convinced she is in danger, Gavin sprints back toward the building. Inside, Chitsuitsui hits Mr. Jiang with the plant while yelling at him not to touch her. He clutches his head angrily, saying she does not know what is good for her. Mr. Jiang viciously beats Chitsuitsui, promising to make her suffer. As Gavin and Yahello reach the building entrance, a guard blocks them and demands to know what they are doing. Yahello blusters that they are with the young master, shocking the guard who asks what he means. Gavin shoves the guard aside and orders him to move. Another guard yells after them that Chitsuitsui is on the third floor and tries to stop the supposed young master, per Mr. Jiang's orders. The guard chases, explaining Mr. Jiang is handling important business and must not be disturbed. Gavin coldly claims to be Mr. Jiang's father, so he does not need to wait. The guard is bewildered that Mr. Jiang's father looks so young. Realizing something is off, he shouts for security, saying there is trouble. He continues to yell for backup as he runs. The elevator display shows Gavin and Yahello heading for the third floor. Sharon and Jolene, chatting in the hallway about Mr. Jiang enjoying Chitsuitsui, do not see Gavin approaching from behind. They are stunned to suddenly encounter Gavin on the third floor. Gavin, furious, demands to know where Chitsuitsui is. The women evasively ask why he is asking since he is not an intern here. Gavin warns them he will ask only once more where Chitsuitsui is. Sharon angrily tells him this is not a place to act wild and tries to assert authority. Gavin silences her with a brutal strike. Jolene, horrified, shouts at Gavin for daring to hit them. Gavin also slaps Jolene down. Looming over them, he repeats his demand to know where Chitsuitsui is. Cowed, they admit Chitsuitsui is inside Mr. Jiang's office. Sharon tries to warn Gavin not to be reckless because Mr. Jiang is powerful and controls everyone there. Ignoring her, Gavin kicks the office door open. Inside, Chitsuitsui sees Gavin and cries for help while Mr. Jiang orders Gavin to get out. Gavin calls Mr. Jiang a bastard and orders him to release Chitsuitsui. Mr. Jiang blusters, asking if Gavin knows who he is or where he is standing. Gavin grabs Mr. Jiang's attacking hand, stunning him. He calmly breaks Mr. Jiang's arm, making him scream. Writhing in agony, Mr. Jiang calls desperately for security. Gavin savagely punches him in the gut, calling him an animal and telling him to die. Gavin checks on Chitsuitsui, and she tearfully says she is okay but terrified of what almost happened. A squad of guards bursts in, demanding to know who is causing trouble. Mr. Jiang orders the guards to beat Gavin and Yahello to death. Sharon and Jolene cheer the order, convinced Gavin deserves it for attacking them and Mr. Jiang. Moments later, guards are shown knocked out on the floor, revealing Gavin has defeated them all. Sharon is shocked that every security guard has been taken down. Cowering, Mr. Jiang asks Gavin what more he wants from him. Gavin vows to make sure Mr. Jiang never thinks of preying on women again. He crushes Mr. Jiang's groin with a stomp, leaving the man bleeding and broken. Gavin walks away as Mr. Jiang lies on the ground screaming in agony. Gavin turns his dark glare on Sharon and Jolene, addressing them ominously. Terrified, they beg him not to hurt them, reminding him they are former classmates and women. Gavin beats Jolene, calling out the hypocrisy of treating Chitsuitsu that way while claiming to be classmates. He also strikes Sharon, saying he would have crippled her already if she did not still have some use. With Mr. Jiang and the two women groaning on the floor, Gavin leads Chitsuitsu and Yahello out, saying they are leaving. Sharon fusses over the injured Mr. Jiang and says they should call the police. Mr. Jiang slaps her, yelling that they cannot report this and ordering her to hurry him to a hospital instead. Later, furious and humiliated, Mr. Jiang phones Ziwei Biotech, asking them to use their latest experimental success to make Gavin disappear permanently. Walking with Gavin and their friend, the girl shyly thanks Gavin. Gavin says classmates should help each other and asks about her future plans. She explains that losing this internship ruined her plan to secure a job and now her prospects look grim. Gavin offers to help her find a job. She happily accepts and asks him to find her one. Gavin brings her and their friend to a place that is hiring. At the warehouse, she is surprised Gavin really wants her to work there, and he confirms it. She worries the warehouse manager role does not match her finance major. Gavin reassures her that every job has value and she can excel anywhere. The recruiter impatiently asks if she will take the job as they are closing. Gavin urges Chitsuitsui to register quickly, and she agrees. After she signs up, Gavin tells her to work hard and says they will visit her soon. Walking away, Gavin's chubby friend jokes that only a naive top finance student like Chitsuitsui would accept becoming a security guard. Gavin replies that her so-called silliness is exactly why she got this opportunity. Leaving the logistics park, Gavin says it is time for them to head back. Suddenly a gun is pressed to Gavin's head and he is ordered not to move. Seeing the armed men, Gavin guesses they work for Mr. Lowe. Their leader says Gavin's 3 days are up and orders them into the vehicle to have their bodies dismantled for Mr. Lowe. Gavin's friend urges him not to go quietly, saying these 4 thugs should be no problem for his skills. Gavin smiles and decides to go along, saying the real show has yet to start. The kidnappers bring them to an isolated warehouse and announce they have arrived. Inside the abandoned suburban factory, Gavin's friend nervously points out where they are. A thug shoves Gavin forward with his gun, telling him to stop dawdling. Gavin's eyes flare with determination as he prepares to act. He suddenly disarms and throws one attacker with a swift strike. Gavin then fatally shoots another thug in the head. Holding the smoking gun aloft, Gavin stands over the fallen man. The remaining gunmen angrily shout that he is courting death. Gavin calmly guns down several more enemies with precise shots. His friend excitedly praises Gavin's one-shot kills and calls him a sharpshooter. Gavin hands his friend a pistol and tells him to take it. Narration reveals that in his previous life during the apocalypse he had no powers, so he relentlessly trained his marksmanship, becoming an expert shooter. His friend panics that he does not know how to use the gun. Gavin asks if he plays shooter games, and the friend proudly answers that he is a pro. Gavin tells him to just imagine he is playing one of those games now. Outside, a container truck arrives with people gathered around cargo. Gavin and his friends see that the truck belongs to Ziwei Biotech, a top global biotech corporation, and wonder why it is here. Gavin recalls that in his past life Ziwei Biotech became revered saviors after the apocalypse by boosting human survival. But now he realizes the company is more sinister than it appears. 2 armed guards discover Gavin and his friend and demand to know who is there. Gavin instantly shoots them both before they can react. Checking a badge from one of the bodies, Gavin confirms they are Ziwei Biotech employees. A blonde executive greets Mr. Lowe, praising the freshness of the body parts he supplies and saying Ziwei Biotech is satisfied. Mr. Lowe proudly replies that he is honored to cooperate, and that 2 more living specimens will soon arrive to complete the set of 6. Spotting Gavin and his chubby friend, Mr. Lowe recognizes them as the last 2 live parts. He cheerfully presents Gavin and his friend to Ms. Pei as the final 2 healthy organ donors. Ms. Pei suddenly notices that the 2 captives are armed and questions why they have guns. Mr. Lowe turns in shock and starts to exclaim at them. Gavin wordlessly shoots him, wounding his leg. Howling in pain, Mr. Lowe orders his men to attack Gavin. Gavin proceeds to shoot down the rushing gunman with effortless accuracy. Ms. Pei marvels at his precise shooting while Mr. Lowe frantically orders everyone to swarm them. Gavin hides his friend behind a truck and says he will handle the attackers, then shoots more of them as they charge. Furious, Mr. Lowe rants that no one has ever dared cause trouble on his turf and orders his underlings to crush the intruders and take their organs. Gavin continues mowing down the gunmen with dual pistols. The remaining thugs note Gavin's incredible speed and try to stop him with gunfire. Moments later, one of the gunmen collapses dead at Ms. Pei's feet, shocking her. Surrounded by corpses, Mr. Lowe and Ms. Pei tremble and demand to know what Gavin wants. Gavin points his gun at them and counters by asking what they want. Mr. Lowe scoffs that such information is beyond a punk like Gavin. Gavin shoots him again in the shoulder, cutting off his arrogance. Staring down the smoking barrel, Gavin coldly tells him to repeat himself because he is listening. Mr. Lowe, bleeding but defiant, warns that he is not easily frightened and that Gavin does not know who he is crossing. Gavin orders his friend to kill Mr. Lowe, stunning the chubby guy. Gavin insists again that his friend do it. Thinking Gavin distracted, Mr. Lowe draws a hidden gun and prepares to shoot him. Gavin's friend panics but fires first. Mr. Lowe is shot in the forehead, staring in disbelief as blood trickles down. Horrified, the chubby friend realizes he has killed someone and stares at Mr. Lowe's corpse. Gavin dismisses Mr. Lowe as useless, saying Ms. Pei must know far more, which makes her panic that he knows her name. Smiling darkly, Gavin says she does not need to know who he is and jokingly tells her she can call him daddy. Outraged, Ms. Pei screams at him to stop being so insolent. Gavin shoots her in the leg, making her collapse in agony. Wounded and terrified, Ms. Pei identifies herself as a Ziwei biotech executive and warns of consequences for attacking her. Gavin shoots her other leg as well, ignoring her status. Standing over the trembling executive, he says he is not interested in her empty threats. Begging for her life, she promises to tell him everything, confessing that Mr. Lowe supplies them with live human organs for Ziwei's human experiments. Gavin demands to know what kind of experiments they are doing. She explains they study human evolution and bioweapons and offers to take him to see the project if he spares her. A brief image shows a monstrous mantis-like war machine, hinting at the result of those experiments. Gavin realizes that Ziwei created the mantis war god using these human test subjects and that, contrary to his past assumptions, their unethical human modification began well before the apocalypse. Ms. Pei panics that such a project is top secret and questions how he could possibly know about it. Nearby, Gavin's friend opens a container and recoils on discovering it is packed with human organs. Desperate, Ms. Pei proposes that Gavin join forces with Ziwei Biotech, promising him immense wealth and power in return for his skills. Gavin rejects her offer outright, saying he is not interested. She pleads not to be killed, insisting she can still be of use. Gavin mockingly asks in what way she could be useful. She blurts out that she is very good at using her mouth, trying to imply another kind of usefulness. Her eyes widen in fear as she sees his reaction. Gavin coolly shoots her in the head, ending her life. He remarks that she could not even stop a bullet yet bragged about how good her mouth was. Gavin then finds and pockets a VIP keycard that grants access to Ziwei Biotech's headquarters. 3 days later, a fat shareholder of Ziwei Biotech angrily learns by phone that something serious happened at the company, and wonders who dared provoke them. As a minor investor, he rages at being kept in the dark and insists he has a right to know what is going on. A muscular subordinate named Hunter arrives, and the boss, Mr. Jiang, greets him. Mr. Jiang hires Hunter to eliminate a troublesome kid named Gavin. Hunter, who already bears a grudge against Gavin, promises to handle it, and vows to send Mr. Jiang one of Gavin's hands within days. Elsewhere, Gavin's heavily fortified villa is described as so reinforced that even a tank could not break through it. An engineer reports that only the interior systems such as ventilation, water, and heating remain to be finished in about a week, and Gavin thanks him for the hard work. The neighborhood committee woman Auntie Lou visits, introduces herself, and confirms Gavin is the new resident. She asks Gavin to join the community group chat via QR code so they can stay in touch. After he agrees and scans it, she asks if she can collect the many cardboard boxes left from his renovations. Gavin says he does not need the boxes but claims it is inconvenient to go inside right now. Auntie Lou presses, saying she can just fetch a cart and take them herself. But Gavin insists again that it is inconvenient because construction is rushed and he does not want delays. Irritated, she calls him stingy and says grabbing some cardboard will not delay anything, attempting to push her way in, so Gavin counters by offering to bring the boxes to her home in a week. She angrily refuses, saying the boxes might be sold by then and she wants them now. Losing patience, Gavin shouts at her to scram. She yells back, demanding why he is cursing people. Gavin coldly warns her to get lost or he will hit her. Storming off, Auntie Lou complains that young people have no respect for elders and vows he will get what is coming to him someday. In another scene, a rich young man named Zach Young pays the gang leader One-Eyed Dragon $500,000 to take on a job. One-Eyed Dragon gratefully says that, as members of the vast dragon group, they are duty-bound to serve young Master Young and asks what he needs. Zach explains this is a personal matter and orders them to make Gavin disappear completely without leaving evidence. One-Eyed Dragon smugly assures him that as a professional killer he will act that night so Gavin vanishes without a trace. Later, Zach watches as One-Eyed Dragon and his men head out to perform the hit. Alone, Zach gloats that Gavin underestimates the power backing him and boasts he could kill Gavin with a snap of his fingers. That night, One-Eyed Dragon scopes out a tall, luxurious hotel and asks if the target's location is certain. His henchmen confirm that Gavin is staying in the hotel's presidential suite and note how rich he must be. One-Eyed Dragon orders his men to spread out, watch for any movement, and not let Gavin escape. Inside the suite, Gavin reflects that since his rebirth everything has gone according to his plan. He notes that in 3 days the most critical phase will begin and that the plan's success depends on it. Gavin suddenly senses noise outside his room. In the corridor, One-Eyed Dragon approaches with a pistol, footsteps echoing. Gavin deduces that these must be Zach Young's hired killers and decides to play along with their scheme. Listening through the door, Gavin hears another team planning to enter from the back and realizes more than one group of attackers is coming. Hunter leads his own crew down the hallway, assuring them that dealing with a student will be easy while warning them not to underestimate Gavin because he humiliated another gang before. One of Hunter's men shows off that they are well prepared this time, brandishing a gun. Hunter instructs his men to beat Gavin to death, and then send one of his ears to Mr. Jiang as proof. Inside, Gavin flips the light switch off and cheerfully says that since it is so lively he might as well have some fun. Seeing the room go dark, One-Eyed Dragon assumes Gavin has gone to sleep and orders his men to charge in. Hunter likewise commands his own gang to rush the suite. Both groups burst into the room from different entrances and unexpectedly find each other instead of Gavin. One-Eyed Dragon halts his men, noticing someone ahead in the darkness. Mistaking Hunter for Gavin, he points a gun and tells the figure not to move. Hunter, thinking Gavin is confronting them, arrogantly replies that One-Eyed Dragon is the one who should not move. One-Eyed Dragon rages at the supposed brat for still acting arrogant. Hunter shouts back that the other guy has the script backwards and that he should be the one saying that. One-Eyed Dragon declares that the loudmouth is dead today. Hunter, irritated that the target acts like another killer, tells his men they are too arrogant and orders them to attack. Both gangs simultaneously yell to kill the other side and charge into a firefight. A chaotic gun battle erupts between the two groups, and many of their members are shot. One-Eyed Dragon's subordinate realizes Gavin has reinforcements and yells for their weapons. Hunter shouts that Gavin seems to have a lot of backup and orders his side to open fire. Watching from safety, Gavin smirks and decides to let the fools keep killing each other. After the brutal clash, a battered One-Eyed Dragon leans against the wall by the light switch, panting that he finally eliminated them all. On the floor, Hunter sees his own gang wiped out and angrily demands to know why One-Eyed Dragon is there. They realize they were both sent separately to kill Gavin and argue over the situation. One-Eyed Dragon finally understands they have been tricked and that Gavin likely slipped away long ago. 3 days later, Gavin meets his chubby friend again, who brings him some news. The friend reports that Chi Chang-nong used his influence to have Gavin expelled from school, but Gavin dismisses it as unimportant since an impending apocalypse will render diplomas worthless. His friend admits the diploma is useless but complains that he cannot stand Chi Chang-nong's smugness as the guy brags about Gavin's expulsion in the group chat. Gavin sees messages on his phone and smugly decides he knows how to deal with his enemy. In the class group chat, Counselor Chi announces Gavin Clark will be expelled for attacking a teacher. Wanda insults Gavin as trash, and she taunts Gavin that expulsion will ruin his future. Reading this, Gavin's expression turns cold and serious. She keeps mocking Gavin in the chat, and Gavin replies by calling him an idiot. She curses Gavin as an unemployed bum, so Gavin publicly accuses Chi of having an affair with Principal Lee's wife and claims there is surveillance evidence. Yahello, shocked by Gavin's post, exclaims that this gossip is explosive and asks how Gavin knew. Gavin recalls that in his previous life during the apocalypse, Chi himself drunkenly confessed all of this when they were trapped at school. Panicking, Chi orders the chat group disbanded and threatens anyone who shares the messages. Yahello laughs that Chi is freaking out and says he will upload the chat logs to the school forum. Gavin tells Yahello they have important business to handle, and Yahello asks what it is. Gavin asks if Yahello's dad still does not believe their warnings, and Yahello says his dad almost wants to commit him. Gavin promises that after today's business he will accompany Yahello to convince his father. Night falls over an urban neighborhood. Yahello wonders what big event could happen in such a place as Gavin says they have arrived. Looking at a nice house, Yahello comments that it is considered wealthy for this area. Inside, a drunk man complains that his alcohol is gone while gripping a heavy bottle. The drunkard sits among scattered bottles, watching a bruised girl locked in a cage. His gaze fixes menacingly on the girl. The caged girl glares back defiantly despite her injuries. He yells at her for staring and slams the bottle against the cage, frightening her. He rants that her mother's dowry money is spent and says he will sell her family's house for more cash. Laughing wickedly, he adds that before selling the house he will sell the girl to buy liquor. He drags the girl out of the cage by her hair while she screams. Holding her by the hair and chin, he boasts that he beat her mother to death for disobeying him and threatens the girl with the same fate. In desperation, the girl bites his hand hard. Furious, he raises his arm to kill her, telling her to go join her mother. At that moment the door bursts open and Gavin and Yahello appear, startling the drunk. Gavin and Yahello stand sternly in the doorway, confronting the scene. The man, still gripping the girl by the hair, demands to know who Gavin is, and Gavin retorts by asking what he thinks. Gavin's narration identifies the man as Phone K, a vicious thug who in the previous timeline gained a hyperspace ability, transported government supplies during the ice apocalypse, and became a temporary national hero. He recalls that Phone later stole a massive shipment while sent to rescue a city, causing 1 million people to freeze and starve. Gavin remembers that Phone eventually died to an ice demon and his hyperspace storage, full of supplies, vanished with him. Gavin is surprised to see a little girl here, noting she never appeared in his previous life. Thinking Gavin and Yahello are traffickers, Phone cheerfully offers to sell the skinny but pretty girl to them for extra cash. Outraged, Yahello points at Phone and calls him a beast, stunning Phone. Yahello repeats that Phone is worse than an animal. Phone angrily calls Yahello a human trafficker as well and accuses him of hypocrisy. Yahello shouts back that he is no trafficker and indignantly asks how he looks like one. Phone raises a bottle and threatens to crack Yahello's skull for causing trouble. A gunshot hits Phone in the leg, making him scream. Gavin praises Yahello's improving aim as Yahello calmly holds the smoking gun. Clutching his bleeding leg, Phone trembles and demands to know who they are. Yahello, furious about Feng's abuse, vows he will not let such a man go free. As Fong struggles on the floor, the girl seizes a bottle and smashes it over his head while another shot rings out. Gavin and Yahello stare in shock at the girl's sudden attack. Bleeding from the head, Fong curses the girl for daring to hit him. She smashes the broken bottle down on his skull again. Fong collapses, and the girl stands over him with the bloody bottle while he threatens revenge. Trembling but resolute, she raises the bottle high to strike once more. Yahello instinctively moves to stop her, but Gavin holds him back, telling him to let her vent her rage. Gavin thinks that the girl's accumulated hatred must be immense and that stopping her now would leave her psychologically scarred. The girl's hand shakes as she grips the bloody bottle. Fong lies motionless in a pool of blood while the girl stares at his body, still trembling. Yahello exclaims that Fong is dead, and Gavin coldly says a man like him deserved it. Gavin notes it is almost time for his next plan and instructs Yahello to wash the blood off the girl and comfort her while he goes to the rooftop. On the roof, Gavin watches fiery meteors and a glowing object descend from the sky. He smiles up at it, recognizing this as the greatest opportunity that appears before the apocalypse. Gavin opens his arms as golden light engulfs him and the power descends. Surrounded by energy, Gavin exults that he has succeeded. Inside a vast luminous space, he realizes his new storage dimension is enormous, enough to hoard endless supplies. Later, on the rooftop under the night sky, his phone vibrates, drawing his attention. He spots a police car arriving near the building and is surprised. A handcuffed bald man tells the police that Fong K arranged to sell him a girl at this address. The officers prepare their weapons and order all units to move into the house. Cleaned up and changed, the rescued girl now stands shyly in the living room. Yahello cheerfully tells Gavin that the girl looks quite cute now that she is cleaned up. Gavin warns Yahello that the authorities are outside. Yahello panics about the corpse and guns still in the house. Gavin says there is no need to flee because with his new ability the situation is different now. Using his space, he makes Feng's corpse suddenly vanish, astonishing Yahello. Police burst in and shout for Gavin and Yahello to freeze. An officer points a gun and asks which of them is Fong K. The bald buyer insists Fong is not present while Gavin, Yahello and the girl stand with their hands raised. The officer demands to know why Gavin and Yahello are there. Gavin smoothly claims he is the girl's distant cousin who came to check on her. Yahello backs him up, saying he is Gavin's classmate who accompanied him. An officer gently asks the girl for her name, telling her not to be afraid. She introduces herself as Cece. The officer then asks Cece if she knows Gavin. Cece affirms that Gavin is indeed her cousin, as her mother once told her. Satisfied, the officer tells them to inform him immediately if they learn anything about Fong K and then leaves. After the police depart, Yahello sighs with relief and urges that they leave quickly. Cece quietly tugs Yahello's sleeve, wanting to stay with them. Yahello realizes he almost forgot about Cece and wonders what will happen to her now that Fong is dead. Gavin asks Cece if she would like to come with them. Cece happily nods her agreement. Yahello suggests they take her in since she cannot survive alone, and Gavin agrees but says he will not support freeloaders. Gavin asks Cece if she knows how to cook instant noodles. She enthusiastically answers that she does. Gavin smiles and tells them all to leave together. The trio walk down the street under the night sky, discussing going for hot pot and whether Cece can handle spicy food. The narration notes 3 days remain until the ice apocalypse as Gavin and Yahello approach Yahello's luxurious family estate, where Yahello admits he is still scared. Gavin replies that there is nothing to fear, insists the apocalypse is definitely coming in 3 days, and says they must persuade Yahello's father today. Inside, Yahello's father dismisses their warnings as nonsense and orders them out. Yahello urgently protests that Gavin is telling the truth and begs his father to act before it is too late. His father angrily repeats that they should leave and stop disturbing his tea. As he reaches for his teacup, Gavin secretly makes it vanish with his spatial power. Yahello's father is baffled to find his tea suddenly gone. Gavin cheerfully admits he took it and explains this is the superpower he mentioned. The skeptical father assumes it is just a magic trick and says he cannot be fooled so easily. Gavin then makes the sofa disappear, causing the father to crash to the floor. Stunned and bruised, the man stares at the empty space where the sofa was. Gavin asks if he believes him now. Still doubtful, the father claims they must have prepared this stunt and declares he will not be convinced so easily. Gavin removes the floor beneath his hand as well, making it briefly vanish. The father again falls on his face, groaning in pain. He challenges Gavin that he will only believe if Gavin can make everything in the room disappear. Gavin obliges, leaving the father standing in a completely empty, sparkling room. Seeing that all the furniture is truly gone, the father finally admits it and Gavin asks again if he believes. In a panic, the father slaps Yahello, as if to check whether he is dreaming. Yahello yelps and asks why his father hit him. Realizing it is real, the father declares he is not dreaming and that he believes in Gavin's power. The next day, narration states there are 2 days left until the ice apocalypse. Gavin receives a phone notification that 760 million renminbi has been transferred to his account. Yahello excitedly shows Gavin the message, saying his father has wired them over 700 million. Gavin tells Yahello to split up. Yahello must buy supplies, focusing on cold weather gear and necessities, while Gavin will inspect the villa and purchase weapons if possible. Gavin arrives at his newly renovated villa, admiring its defensive layout. The contractor, Mr. Zhao, reports that all construction and renovations have been completed exactly according to Gavin's specifications and asks for his opinion. Gavin says he is very satisfied and praises Zhao for his work. Zhao proudly explains that this was their company's most difficult project, designed to let someone survive inside comfortably throughout an apocalypse if they have enough supplies. Gavin promises to send the final payment soon, and Zhao prepares to leave. Gavin stops him to say something more. He advises Zhao not to go out for the next 2 days and to stockpile food and supplies at home. Zhao, puzzled, asks if some disaster like a typhoon is coming, and Gavin replies that a once-in-a-century super typhoon is indeed on the way. Zhao decides to follow Gavin's advice, seeing it as a good excuse to rest at home for a couple of days. Soon afterward, trucks rumble up to the villa, delivering mountains of goods Gavin has ordered. Yahello returns with the purchased supplies, proudly saying he bought only the best and most expensive items. Gavin tells him to move everything into the villa so he can store it all in his superpowered space. Nearby, a grandmother and grandson watch the massive delivery and wonder if Gavin's family is opening a supermarket. The boy tugs his grandmother's hand, begging for a lollipop from the boxes. She lifts him onto the stacks of crates, promising to get one for him. Later, Yahello rushes to Gavin saying he has a problem. He confesses that even after all his shopping he has not managed to spend more than 100 million. Gavin says he will send Yahello the locations of several large grain depots and orders him to buy all the grain stored there. Gavin narrates that in his previous life those granaries were seized by villains, and this time he intends to cut off their future source of power. A worker tells Gavin that one last batch of crossbow crates cannot be moved because an old lady is blocking them, so Gavin goes to investigate. The grandmother hacks at one of Gavin's boxes while her grandson demands his candy, and she assures him she is opening it. Gavin arrives and demands to know what she is doing. She cheerfully says that since Gavin bought so much, her grandson just wants a single lollipop and assumes Gavin will not mind. Gavin icily replies that he does mind. The woman scolds him for being stingy, claiming that taking a lollipop should count as his apology for their earlier conflict, and even offers to haul away more boxes for herself. Gavin angrily orders her to get out and leave his property. She shouts back that as deputy director of the neighborhood committee she can take things from anyone's house and accuses him of disrupting community harmony. Gloating, the boy brandishes the lollipop he has taken while standing atop the boxes. Gavin yells at the woman to get her grandson down from the dangerous pile. The brat refuses, calls Gavin names, and boasts he will defeat him like a game villain. Fed up, Gavin rolls up his sleeves and again orders the child to come down. The woman frantically tells Gavin to back off and get away from them. The boy slips and falls into a box of crossbows with a thud. Several crossbow bolts jab painfully into his backside. Screaming in agony, he howls that it hurts over and over. Gavin's relative clutches her crying grandson who was shot in the butt with arrows. Gavin smirks, feeling the boy got what he deserved. The furious grandmother yells that Gavin injured her grandson and vows to return for compensation. Gavin oversees large deliveries while 2 women watch from afar, puzzled. The red-haired woman wonders why Gavin is buying so many supplies. Yang Ziqing, Xenia's best friend, dismisses Gavin as crazy for hoarding so much in the heat. The 2 women decide to leave Gavin to Zack and head to the salon. Narration states there's 1 day left until the ice apocalypse. As Gavin notes, he has spent all their money on 5 granaries worth of grain. Gavin tells his chubby friend they will first meet Chitsuitsui and then collect the grain. Chitsuitsui greets Gavin at the logistics park and asks how his recent work there has been. She reports she has been promoted to warehouse supervisor and anxiously asks how long she must keep working there. Gavin says she can quit tomorrow, delighting her. He then stops her resignation, asking Chitsuitsui to do one last favor. Gavin instructs her to obtain the warehouse keys because he plans to come that night. Later she is startled to find him arriving at the warehouse in the middle of the night. Gavin tells her to wait inside the warehouse for an explanation. He stresses that she must wait for him there and keep this secret. Alone in the warehouse, Chitsuitsui nervously speculates about Gavin's intentions. Workers show Gavin and his partner stacks of boxed food for inspection. Gavin dismisses Boss Liang's people and receives keys to the other granaries. Once the staff leave, Gavin and his friend prepare to act. Gavin activates his hyperspace ability, commanding it to collect the warehouse's goods. His friend is stunned as all the food vanishes instantly. Gavin explains that anything stored in hyperspace remains forever fresh, even centuries later. His friend infers that time does not pass in hyperspace, and Gavin says he still needs to study the phenomenon. The returning manager announces his presence, expecting to find the stored goods. He is shocked upon discovering the empty warehouse. He questions his sanity, unable to believe the mountain of food disappeared so quickly. That night Gavin knocks on the sealed warehouse where Chitsuitsui waits. She blushes and happily welcomes Gavin inside. Gavin warns that what he is about to do may shock her and asks her to stay silent. She agrees. He asks if she is ready for him to begin. Nervous and flustered, Chitsuitsui consents. She spaces out in embarrassment until Gavin calls for her to follow him. She hurriedly runs after Gavin through the warehouse. They stand before towering shelves of grain. Gavin prepares to collect this entire batch, believing it will make his resource stockpile astronomical. His hyperspace ability again sweeps through the warehouse. Chitsuitsui panics as everything around her begins disappearing. She realizes the goods have vanished and asks Gavin if he is responsible. Gavin postpones explanations and urges her to help him clear the other warehouses. A sign shows they move on to the surveillance room. Inside the monitoring center, Chitsuitsui wonders why they are there. Gavin uses his power to shut down all the security cameras. He tells her they will leave and that he will explain everything later. Night falls on Gavin's brightly lit villa. At home, Gavin's little sister serves tea to Chitsuitsue as everyone sits together. Gavin asks whether Chitsuitsue believes his story about the impending apocalypse and his powers, and she says she does. Gavin's friend marvels at her unconditional trust in Gavin. Gavin declares that since the apocalypse begins tomorrow, none of them should go outside anymore. Chitsuitsue asks to run one last errand, and Gavin warns her to return before noon the next day. Narration marks the ice apocalypse countdown at 0 days as someone pleads with a man called Young Master Young, saying their previous attack on Gavin was a mistake. The eye-patched henchman explains they accidentally clashed with another group also trying to kill Gavin and promises it will not happen again. Zack Young complains that dealing with Gavin keeps going wrong and says his patience is gone. He decides to personally handle Gavin this time, arming himself. Meanwhile, a group of stray cats and dogs eagerly await food. Chitsuitsue feeds them and tearfully tells them the apocalypse is coming so they must learn to fend for themselves. She bids the animals farewell, hoping to see them again. Zack's men observe Chitsuitsue and report that Gavin has been holed up in his villa, making it hard to strike at him directly. The eye-patch thug suggests kidnapping Chitsuitsue, assuming she is Gavin's girlfriend, to force Gavin out. Gavin's friend receives a shocking phone call. He relays that Zack Young has captured Chitsuitsue and demands Gavin come alone. Gavin coldly remarks that Zack is courting death and will not live to witness the apocalypse. The scene shifts to a grim, fortress-like building where the confrontation will occur. In an alley, Gavin approaches Zack, whose men hold the bound Chitsuitsue, and Zack mocks Gavin for daring to come. Gavin demands they release Chitsuitsue first. Zack orders his men to let her go so the fight can begin. Chitsuitsue runs to Gavin's side, relieved. Zack sneers at their trust and immediately fires a gun at them. Chitsuitsue screams as the shot rings out. Gavin pulls her down and successfully dodges the bullet. Zack is stunned that Gavin managed to evade his shot. Gavin checks if Chitsuitsue is hurt. She urges him to flee because the attackers are armed. Gavin tells her not to be afraid and insists he will handle the rest. Facing Zack, Gavin states he had intended to spare him for a few more days, but now plans to kill him sooner. Zack orders his men to torture Gavin slowly instead of killing him quickly. One thug boasts he will deal with Gavin and charges in. Gavin easily floors the attacker with a powerful blow, asking if he came here just to die. The remaining henchmen are shocked by Gavin's strength. The eye-patched man sends more underlings to swarm Gavin. 2 knife-wielding assailants rush Gavin. Gavin seizes one attacker's knife arm to block the strike. He turns the weapon back on the man, stabbing him. Gavin then slashes and cripples the legs of several more enemies, leaving them screaming. Chitsuitsue watches in awe, realizing Gavin is far stronger than she imagined. Zack and his eye-patched lieutenant cannot believe Gavin's combat skills, but the lieutenant reminds Zack they still have guns. The lieutenant points his gun at Gavin, daring him to dodge a bullet. A gunshot hits the lieutenant instead, shocking him. Gavin says he also has a gun, revealing he had armed himself. Zack cries out in disbelief as his trusted lieutenant falls dead. Chitsuitsue is horrified to see Gavin kill someone. Zack panics and tries to run away. Gavin shoots Zack in the leg to stop his escape. Standing over him, Gavin asks if he really thought he could run. Zack, bleeding and terrified, claims he is heir to the vast dragon group and insists Gavin cannot touch him. Gavin responds by shooting him again in the leg. He coolly states that he already has hurt Zack. Zack, broken, begs Gavin for mercy and offers to pay whatever amount Gavin demands. Gavin names his price as 1 trillion. Zack is stunned into speechlessness. He protests that no one could possibly pay such a sum and accuses Gavin of joking. Gavin says that because Zack cannot pay yet still postures, he will instead give him a painful lesson and punches him. Zack screams and begs Master Gavin to stop beating him. Gavin calls him a coward and continues the beating, saying he promised to finish him today. A police car suddenly arrives, officers ordering everyone to freeze. Gavin realizes Zack had secretly called the police when the situation turned against him. Zack gloats that Gavin has now assaulted people in public and predicts he will spend his life in prison. Gavin then strikes Zack in the groin, causing him to howl in agony. Zack shrieks that Gavin has crushed his manhood. Gavin explains that he is sparing Zack's life not because of the police but because he wants Zack to suffer through the coming apocalypse, while officers shout for Gavin to drop his gun. Gavin declares confidently that he will never be captured. The police move in to cuff him where he stands among the wounded men. Gavin calmly counts down under his breath. At that moment snowfall begins, prompting an officer to note that time is up. The officers look up in confusion as snow falls around them. Gavin and everyone else wonder why it is suddenly snowing heavily in midsummer. A protective dome of frost forms over the cityscape. The policemen shiver, realizing the temperature is plummeting fast. One wounded thug panics as ice crystals start forming over his injuries. Zack, also freezing and encased in ice, begs Gavin for help. The officers decide they must save the freezing victims. Chitsuitsue clings to Gavin, saying it already feels -20 or 30 degrees, and he urges her to hurry home because it will get colder. A cop points a gun at Gavin, ordering him to stop and not leave. Gavin advises the officer to drop the metal gun before it destroys his hand in the extreme cold. Feeling his hand go numb, the officer hastily throws the gun away. Gavin taunts the collapsed Zack, reminding him he said he would never be caught. Zack begs Gavin to help him. fearing his legs will soon freeze off. Gavin turns away with Chitsuitsue, telling Zack to enjoy the apocalypse. Soon the entire city is blanketed in snow. People trudge through the streets, complaining about the deadly cold and calling it a once-in-a-century disaster. Chitsuitsue admits everything Gavin predicted has come true, and he warns this is only the beginning and that conditions will worsen. She anxiously asks how long the ice apocalypse will last. Gavin answers that he does not know. His internal narration recalls that in his previous life the ice apocalypse had already lasted a year with no sign of ending by the time he died. At a clothing store, panicked citizens loot winter clothes despite staff protests, insisting they will die without warm clothing. Watching the looting, Chitsuitsue fears social order is about to collapse, and Gavin says beyond order, people's humanity will deteriorate. Shortly after, knife-wielding robbers stop Gavin and Chitsuitsue, demanding their clothes. Gavin coldly tells them to get lost, implying they are courting death. Offended, the two men charge at him with knives, intending to stab him. Gavin knocks one attacker away with a heavy blow. He then aims his gun at the remaining man, who panics at the click. Gavin asks whether this is what they call arrogance while holding the gun on him. The terrified robber insists Gavin is not arrogant at all and flatters him for his restraint. The scene shifts back to Gavin's villa, now buried in a raging blizzard. Inside, Gavin's group enjoys hot pot, and his friend remarks how cozy it is to eat warmly while it snows outside. Gavin tells everyone that from now on they must not open the door to strangers. A news broadcast explains that a mysterious global cold spell has plunged temperatures worldwide and urges people to stay calm, keep warm, and maintain order. Gavin notes that their community's group chat has become very active. Messages in the homeowners chat show residents confused about the sudden weather change and discussing how cold it is even in midsummer. A fortune teller and a lawyer both advise in the chat that this is a natural disaster and everyone should prepare early and stock up on supplies. An outspoken neighbor in the chat scolds everyone, saying they should trust the authorities and not hoard goods, insisting the snowstorm will pass quickly and stockpiling only causes trouble. Gavin smirks at his phone, clearly pleased with himself. On social media, Gavin Original advises everyone that if they stock up, they should stock up heavily. Neighbors led by Auntie Lou scold Gavin online for fearmongering and insist the snowstorm will end soon, which Gavin privately mocks. 3 days later, residents observe that the snow has fallen non-stop and the temperature has plummeted to around -60 degrees. A couple worries that the sudden apocalypse left many without time to buy food and fears people will starve. Gavin watches the anxious couple from behind, holding his phone and looking amused. In the community chat, residents complain the cold snap worsens and question Auntie Lou's earlier reassurance, while a fortune teller ominously predicts bad signs. More chat messages argue over the fortune teller's claim until Auntie Lou orders everyone to trust the organization and announces house-to-house supply inspections. Hearing a knock, Gavin prepares to answer the door while his worried guests look on. Outside, Auntie Lou and committee members demand entry, claiming the community has come to provide warmth. Gavin cheerfully refuses, saying his home is already warm, while his guests smile behind him. Auntie Lou identifies herself and insists he open the door, but Gavin casually refuses because it is cold outside. Furious, Auntie Lou orders Gavin to obey the organization and open the door immediately. Gavin sarcastically claims he would never dare defy the organization, prompting Auntie Lou to praise his supposed obedience and again demand the door be opened. Gavin explodes that he is indeed defying them and insults Auntie Lou. Auntie Lou rages at being insulted and shouts back at Gavin. One of her men frets they cannot inspect Gavin's supplies if he will not open up, but Auntie Lou decides to raid other homes first to gather food for her grandson. Inside, Gavin comments that after 3 days of disaster, people's darker nature is beginning to surface. Snow continues to batter the upscale residential buildings, emphasizing the worsening storm. Elsewhere, Xenia and her mother realize they only have 3 days of food left and that young Master Young is injured and snowbound, unable to help. Xenia's mother panics, but Xenia calmly says they still have money and should buy supplies before prices rise further. In the neighborhood group chat, Xenia announces she has run out of food and offers to buy any extras, negotiating to purchase a neighbor's small stash of noodles and porridge at high prices. Xenia quickly agrees to an even higher price per item and tells neighbors where to bring their food if they want to sell to her. Gavin notes that while he dislikes Xenia, he admits she was smart enough to stockpile early, as his house enjoys a rich dinner. Gavin predicts that in a few more days the people selling their supplies now will bitterly regret it. 3 days later, the snowbound villa complex looks even more frozen and desolate. In another home, a group huddles under blankets, lamenting that temperatures have dropped to -60 or 70 with no sign of warming. 2 shivering women fear they will starve to death since all their food is gone. Their leader Hunter decides they cannot sit and die, rallies them, and proposes going out to loot supplies. While preparing to loot, one of Hunter's followers sees Gavin's online posts and wonders if this is the same Gavin they once hunted. Confirming the account as Gavin's, they are shocked he lives in the same community. Hunter grins and orders his men to message Gavin and demand that he personally deliver them food. Back at the villa, Gavin coaches a girl named Cece through physical training, telling her to hold her current posture to pass. Fired up, Cece vows to succeed under Gavin's guidance. Seeing Cece's effort, Gavin's chubby friend resolves to start training as well because the world has changed. Gavin invites him to join Cece, explaining that the cultivation method he teaches will put them ahead of other humans if they begin now. Shortly after starting, the chubby friend collapses, groaning that he cannot endure any longer. Exhausted, he jokes that he needs to cook a lobster to recover, while Cece still stands and Gavin watches. Gavin's phone buzzes with a new message, grabbing his attention. The text threatens that Hunter from the same community expects Gavin to bring food to them if he knows what is good for him. Gavin's expression turns sly as he considers the arrogant demand. He replies with a single insult, calling the sender an idiot. Gavin reflects that in his previous life Hunter's group lived in another community, so the altered timeline has moved them closer this time. At Hunter's building, his men wonder aloud if Gavin has replied yet. A lackey announces that Gavin answered, and Hunter impatiently asks what he said. When the lackey reveals Gavin called Hunter an idiot, Hunter spits out his drink in shock. Enraged, Hunter orders his men to arm themselves so they can go kill Gavin. The armed group marches through the blizzard toward Gavin's snow-covered villa. Meanwhile, Xenia's mother frets that their purchased food will only last 2 days and asks if Sak Young has contacted them. Xenia says he is recovering and busy but has vowed to come later and kill Gavin. Xenia's mother remembers that Gavin bought huge quantities of supplies before the apocalypse. Xenia recalls seeing dozens of trucks delivering goods to Gavin, realizing his stockpile is massive. They wonder if Gavin somehow anticipated the disaster but dismissed the idea, echoing Zak's claim that even authorities could not predict this sudden snow apocalypse. Xenia's mother suggests that since Zak cannot come soon, they should not let Gavin's huge stash go unused. Confident, Xenia says she knows how to manipulate Gavin, whom she calls a simp, and plans to make him deliver supplies willingly. At the villa gate, Hunter's group arrives with weapons, identifying the house as Gavin's. Inside, Gavin's friend sees Hunter's group on the monitor and alerts Gavin that people have come. Gavin stays calm, recognizing the visitors as Hunter and his gang. Outside, Hunter angrily yells at Gavin to open the door as his men brandish weapons. Over the intercom, Gavin coldly tells them they are not welcome and orders them to leave. Hunter threatens to break down the door and promises Gavin will regret not begging for mercy. Gavin mocks Hunter's foul mouth and decides to wash it by other means. Using a device, Gavin sprays freezing water all over Hunter's group, making them shout about the cold and scramble away. Soaked and shivering, Hunter still screams to break down the door, while his followers protest that it is too cold to continue. Defeated for now, Hunter retreats while vowing revenge on Gavin. Watching the security feed, Gavin's chubby friend gleefully wishes the soaked attackers would freeze to death. Later, Gavin notes that 7 days have passed since the apocalypse and announces they are going out that night, puzzling his comfortable friend. Gavin explains with a sinister smile that more meteors are about to fall. His friend gets excited about seeing a meteor shower as Gavin checks his phone and prepares. Gavin notices a notification and is surprised that Xenia Scott has messaged him. In chat, Xenia politely asks if he is there and says she wants to talk. Gavin's friend reads the message and crudely dismisses her attempt to talk while Gavin ignores it. At Xenia's home, her mother asks if Gavin replied yet. Xenia smugly assures her mother that since she initiated contact, Gavin will be thrilled and is sure to respond. Half an hour later, Xenia anxiously stares at her unanswered string of messages. She grows angry and confused that Gavin still has not replied. Shivering in their own house, Xenia's family complains about the intense cold and orders the fire stoked higher. Hunter and his men huddle by a fire, saying the weather is almost unlivable. Hunter curses Gavin and vows that next time they will break in, strip him, and throw him into the snow to freeze. 2 hours after her first message, Xenia admits to her mother that Gavin still has not replied. Her mother suggests Gavin may be sulking and advises Xenia to give him an excuse by sending a flattering voice message, certain it will thrill him. Xenia records a syrupy voice message asking about Gavin's well-being and hinting concern about the changing weather. The completed voice message is sent to Gavin's account. Hearing it, Gavin sneers that since Xenia wants to act, he will play along for his own amusement. Into his phone he tauntingly asks if she misses her daddy, mocking her. Xenia arrogantly assumes Gavin has fallen for her act again and boasts to her mother that he always obeys her. When she replays his response and hears the belittling daddy comment, she and her mother are stunned. Furious, Xenia curses Gavin and throws her phone. In the neighborhood chat, residents regret selling food, blame Auntie Lou for urging them not to hoard, while she declares that the committee will now confiscate surplus food for centralized distribution. Gavin laughs at Auntie Lou's scheme, reasoning that in such times few will be foolish enough to hand over their supplies. As night falls completely, Gavin's friend points out the darkness outside. Gavin declares it time to head out and tells Tsuetsue and Cece to bundle up and join them. Internally, Gavin thinks he knows a meteor will land somewhere within the complex but wants more people searching to increase their chances of getting it. Gavin leads his bundled-up group into the freezing streets for the first time since the apocalypse began. Marching through the snow, Gavin instructs everyone that 2 meteors will fall that night and orders them to dive for any they see. Nearby, Auntie Lou and her committee patrol with a loudspeaker, demanding residents hand over supplies for unified distribution in the name of the community. Auntie Lou privately admits the last food they seized is gone and vows to obtain more for her hungry grandson. Gavin's friend denounces Auntie Lou as shameless while Gavin watches her coldly. One of the committee members spots Gavin ahead and points him out to Auntie Lou. Delighted, Auntie Lou rushes toward Gavin, eager to confront the boy who refused to open his door previously. Auntie Lou orders Gavin to stop, setting up a new confrontation in the snowy street. Gavin calmly asks the woman confronting him if something is wrong. The woman accuses Gavin of stockpiling several truckloads of supplies at his home. Gavin openly admits that he has indeed hoarded a lot of supplies. The committee members get excited that Gavin really has food and order him to move all his supplies to the neighborhood committee. Gavin questions why he should comply, and the woman claims it is an official order and that he should set an example during the disaster. Gavin retorts that his supplies are none of their business, prompting the woman to scold his attitude and urge him to improve himself. Gavin mocks her right to lecture him, calling her an old hag and saying she has no say in whether he improves. The woman declares the youths insolent and, in the name of the neighborhood committee, condemns them while Gavin says they will just leave. As Gavin tries to go, 2 men armed with shovels block him and order him to stop. The woman threatens that Gavin will not be allowed to leave unless he hands over his supplies. Gavin's chubby friend angrily slaps the woman and tells her off. Sitting on the ground, the shocked woman cries that they dared to hit her and commands others to seize them. Cece spots fiery streaks in the sky and shouts that the meteor has arrived. Gavin excitedly urges his friends to hurry and go get the meteor. The shovel men yell that none of them are allowed to leave. Gavin and his friend fight back, sending the attackers flying, and Gavin tells them to get lost. Gavin's chubby friend rushes toward the blazing meteor, exclaiming that his great opportunity has come. The impact knocks him flat as the meteor crashes right in front of him. Cece is suddenly lifted toward the glowing meteor as it radiates intense light beneath her. The chubby friend is stunned to see the meteor seemingly flying toward Cece by itself. The meteor's energy engulfs Cece, wrapping her in golden flames as she screams. After landing, Cece kneels glowing on the ground while Chui Chui runs over, worriedly asking if she is okay. Cece reassures Chui Chui that she is fine and says the meteor appears to have entered her body. Chui Chui then sees another meteor descending and shouts that a second one has arrived. Gavin leads the group as they sprint after the new meteor. Behind them, the injured woman yells that they cannot run after hitting an old lady and demands they stop. The second meteor slams into the ground ahead, its blast wave knocking the group backward. Gavin wonders why this meteor fell instead of entering a body and explains that such ground-fallen meteors usually contain special items. They peer into the crater and see a glowing object, which the chubby friend says looks like amber. Gavin identifies it as red spirit fluid, saying they have found something extremely precious, and the chubby friend asks what spirit fluid does. An illustration shows that drinking the red spirit fluid greatly boosts a person's resistance to cold. Gavin notes that increased cold resistance is valuable in this ice apocalypse and suggests they head back home. Later, the committee members, now kneeling and whining, accuse Gavin of committing a serious crime and demand money and instant noodles as compensation. Gavin looks at them with disdain and calls them idiots. The subordinates ask Auntie Lou what to do since Gavin is defying their authority, and she decides to collect supplies from other houses first and deal with him later. A broadcast announces that the ice disaster is a global catastrophe, urges citizens to engage in self-rescue, and says the coalition government is conducting rescue operations. Inside Gavin's house, the TV suddenly goes dark and someone exclaims that the power has gone out. Gavin calmly says the grid has been overloaded since the ice apocalypse began but assures his family they have power stored for 100 years. Looking out at the snow, Chui Chui notes that without electricity, heating will fail, making survival harder and causing many people to freeze or starve. Gavin tells them compassion is fine but they cannot try to save everyone in an apocalypse, and Chui Chui replies that she understands. Gavin asks Cece how she feels now that the meteor has merged with her body. Cece says she does not feel much except that her body feels much lighter than before. Gavin is surprised that feeling lighter is her only change, and Cece confirms that is all. Gavin tells her to test her condition by practicing the body tempering technique he taught her while the others watch. After observing her, Gavin concludes that Cece's physique has not improved and that her awakened ability is unrelated to physical strength. He then asks if she gained any new memories, such as sword techniques or magic spells, but Cece answers no. Gavin finds it odd and says they will have to gradually figure out what ability she has awakened. Holding the amber, Gavin tells everyone they will share the spirit fluid so they can better endure the extreme cold outdoors. The chubby friend drinks his portion of the red spirit fluid from a small cup. Feeling warmth flow through him, he marvels at the strange sensation, while Gavin explains that although the spirit fluid does not completely block the cold, it will prevent them from freezing to death even if they stay outside for a while. In the middle of a blizzard, Xenia's mother complains that the power outage has cut off heating and her body is freezing. Xenia tries to reassure her shivering mother that the power should return soon, but the older woman despairs that without help from Zack Young they cannot endure the darkness and cold. Xenia angrily declares that once the recovering Zack arrives, she will have him kill Gavin first. Her mother notices something odd outside and calls Xenia over to look. They realize Gavin's house across the way still has lights and electricity while everyone else's power is out. Xenia's mother concludes Gavin must have prepared with his own power generation equipment. Furious that Gavin is living comfortably during the crisis, Xenia curses him. Xenia's mother tells her to stop raging and instead contact Gavin to see what they can get from him to improve their situation, so Xenia agrees and uses her phone. Smiling sycophantically into the phone, Xenia calls Gavin and asks what he is doing since the neighborhood's power is out. Gavin's brightly lit, warm house stands out against the snowy night. Inside, Gavin sees Xenia's message, guesses she must be desperate, and notes she is seeking his help again. He photographs his lavishly prepared dinner table, deciding to show Xenia how well he is living. Back in the dark house, Xenia and her mother cheer when Gavin replies and rush to see what he sent. Gavin's message shows off a whole table of rich dishes, saying he was bored and cooked a feast to eat. Drooling over the photo, Xenia and her mother lament their hunger and marvel that Gavin still has so much of their favorite foods. Terrified of starving, Xenia's mother urges her to do whatever it takes to make Gavin share some food with them. Xenia calls Gavin again, asking how he can still have so much food when they have already eaten everything. They celebrate when Gavin sends another reply and hurriedly open it. The reply bluntly states Gavin is going to eat and will not keep chatting, leaving the two women stunned. Furious, Xenia smashes her phone to the floor, convinced Gavin is intentionally provoking her. Relaxing at home, Gavin muses that the other homeowners are also beginning to lose their patience. In the neighborhood group chat, residents discuss starvation, the deadly depth of the snow, and one man deciding he would rather risk going out to search for food than starve. Gavin comments in chat that going outside now is suicidal because the temperature is tens of degrees below zero, and without professional gear people will quickly freeze to death. Despite warnings not to take the risk, Big Stick Wang says he will go out alone while others wish him luck or caution him. Elsewhere, Hunter's small group huddles around a fire. They have run out of food and fear they will not last many more days. The others beg Hunter to come up with a plan so they do not just sit and wait to die. Hunter refuses to leave the neighborhood because the cold makes travel too dangerous. Remembering Auntie Lou collecting supplies for the homeowners, Hunter proposes robbing her first. Hunter recalls his grandmother telling him proudly that she gathered plenty of food by scavenging from other households. In that memory, he selfishly tells his grandmother the food is all his and she is not allowed to eat it. His grandmother indulges him, promising not to eat and to let her beloved grandson have more. Back in the present, Auntie Lou is startled by aggressive knocking at her door. Hunter and his cronies arrive at Auntie Lou's home with bats, ordering her to open up. Seeing Hunter, she panics and wonders why this thug is at her door. Hunter threatens to smash the door in if she does not open it immediately. Auntie Lou, terrified, orders her grandson to hurry and hide all the food. When she delays, Hunter kicks the door down and forces his way in. One of his men spots the hidden supplies and excitedly calls Hunter's attention to the stash. Hunter grins wickedly and orders his men to take everything. Auntie Lou tries to stop them, insisting as neighborhood committee head that what they are doing is illegal. Hunter mocks her claim, saying she scammed those goods from others in the first place. One thug shoves her aside while carrying off a box. Auntie Lou, enraged and desperate, lunges to fight them. Another thug knocks her to the floor and tells her to get lost while the others continue looting. Her grandson, clinging to a box, hysterically claims all the food is his and threatens the thieves. A thug angrily strikes the child for resisting. Auntie Lou screams in anguish for her injured grandson. Hunter decides not to leave empty-handed and orders his followers to strip all the wooden furniture for firewood, which they eagerly begin carrying out. As they march off with food and furniture, Auntie Lou clutches her grandson and calls them murderous bastards. Back at Xenia's home, her mother insists that now is not the time to stay angry. She urges Xenia to act cute and beg Gavin again, which Xenia reluctantly agrees to try. In Gavin's house, his chubby friend happily speaks to his father on the phone while Gavin prepares to respond to Xenia's new call. Xenia soon gleefully announces that Gavin has replied with the word, "Okay." Convinced her plan worked, Xenia tells her mother they can finally enjoy a good meal and smugly thinks Gavin is still a pushover who obeys her when she says a few nice words. Xenia and her mother brave the snow to Gavin's front door, loudly calling for him to open up because she has arrived. Inside, Gavin plays games and, when notified someone is at the door, feigns ignorance by asking who she is. Outside, Xenia cheerfully identifies herself as Xenia Scott. Gavin, still indoors, asks in surprise what Xenia is doing there. Shivering in the extreme cold, Xenia insists she came to see him and begs him to open the door quickly before she freezes. Gavin coolly questions why he should open the door and who told her to come look for him. Xenia protests that he told her to come because his message had said, "Okay." Relaxing on the sofa, Gavin tells her she must have misread his reply and suggests she check the message again. Puzzled and anxious, Xenia looks down at her phone. She sees the full chat where Gavin added a mocking, "my ass," after the word "okay," realizing he never agreed to host her. Outraged, Xenia demands to know if Gavin is messing with her and shouts for him to open the door or not. Gavin simply answers that he will not. Xenia kicks his door in frustration and vows revenge, promising he will regret this. Narration over Gavin's house shows Xenia swearing to make him die a horrible death as she schemes revenge. Back home, Xenia despairs that they cannot even get inside his house, then decides to contact Auntie Lou to accuse Gavin of hoarding supplies so the neighborhood committee will go after him. At Auntie Lou's home, her injured grandson complains of being cold and hungry while she worries nothing must happen to him. She promises to immediately go find him something to eat. Her phone rings with an incoming call. On the call, Xenia self-righteously reports Gavin for secretly stockpiling food and living comfortably while others suffer, asking Auntie Lou to punish him. Auntie Lou, already suspicious of Gavin, agrees she has long wanted to teach him a lesson. In the homeowners group chat, people note Big Stick Wang's silence after his food-seeking trip, learn he nearly froze and lost feeling in a leg, and grimly conclude that going out means dying faster while staying means starving. Gavin reflects that nearly half a month into the apocalypse, The real test of human nature has begun. He suddenly grows more serious as he reads new messages. A new round of group chat posts shows Auntie Lou publicly denouncing Gavin for hoarding supplies, other members expressing shock and asking if he has medicine, and interest in his stockpile spreading. Gavin realizes Auntie Lou is trying to unite the whole complex against him and pressure him into surrendering his goods. Auntie Lou privately messages Gavin, accusing him of letting neighbors die without food or power and demanding he hand over his supplies in the name of compassion, promising only a token, caring resident, certificate in return. She then shares the chat thread about his alleged stash, further stirring neighbors by highlighting even Big Stick Wang's desperate need for medicine. Gavin recalls how, in his previous life, being kind only led to his food being stolen and vows that in this life he will not tolerate anyone taking advantage of him. When he responds sharply, Auntie Lou explodes with rage, swears revenge, and incites all homeowners to treat Gavin as a heartless enemy and storm his house for supplies. Meanwhile, Gavin's friend tells his father to relax and assures him they will handle things. Gavin asks what is wrong, prompting his friend to relay the news. The friend explains that his father reported widespread chaos, with people smashing, looting and robbing. Gavin remarks that such disorder is normal in this crisis and predicts it will only worsen. His friend worries that even though his parents have enough supplies, others might break in. Gavin interprets this as him wanting to check on them. The friend, empowered by spirit fluid, boasts that the extreme cold no longer threatens him, so he can go out. Gavin volunteers to accompany him and reveals he has a snowmobile to make the journey easier. Just then, pounding on the door and shouts for Gavin to open up interrupt them. Watching the surveillance monitor, they see Auntie Lou leading a large crowd to his doorstep, and Gavin notes how persistent she is for bringing so many people. Outside, the gathered residents point at Gavin's house, observing that he still has power and that the steam from his roof proves it is warm inside. Auntie Lou eagerly concludes from the signs that Gavin must indeed have lots of supplies and insists that if he shares, everyone can be saved. Inside, Gavin calmly tells his friend that the mob has come for food but that they can forget about getting any. Auntie Lou stands at his door and demands Gavin hand over his supplies for centralized distribution, claiming all homeowners unanimously approved this decision. Speaking through the intercom, Gavin dryly asks if such a small group really represents all the homeowners. Auntie Lou asserts her authority as director of the neighborhood committee and demands once more that he open the door. Gavin refuses, taunting them to come in by themselves if they are so capable. Anticipating resistance, Auntie Lou reveals she has brought a veteran locksmith, Old Manly, and orders him to open the lock, while he boasts there is no lock he cannot pick. Some bystanders rejoice, imagining the comfort and food they will enjoy once Gavin's door is opened. Old Manly struggles with the unfamiliar multi-layered anti-theft lock and admits it is unlike any common door lock, while Auntie Lou impatiently wonders why it is taking so long. Watching their efforts remotely, Gavin mocks them and brags that his door's security rivals a bank vault, far beyond any ordinary locksmith's ability. Under pressure from Auntie Lou, Old Manly sweats and says he will try again despite his doubts. Gavin then tells Yahello he is done toying with them and instructs him to turn on the power, which Yahello does with a switch. Outside, a sudden surge of electricity runs through the metal door, electrocuting the locksmith. Auntie Lou screams over Old Manly's collapsed, smoking body and accuses Gavin of electrifying the door. She orders a new tactic, leading men pushing a massive log and announcing Plan B, ram the door down. At her command they charge forward with the log to smash the entrance. The log slams into the fortified door with a tremendous boom, but the door holds. Watching them on the monitor again, Gavin and Yahello call the attackers shameless, and note that the supplies were never theirs to begin with. Gavin reflects aloud that the apocalypse exposes people's character, with some refusing to do evil even if it kills them and others willing to kill to survive. Exhausted from the futile battering, one attacker collapses and admits he cannot go on. The others, also spent, lie around the log and concede that the door must be made of some special alloy they cannot break. Seeing their fatigue, Gavin decides it is his turn to act and promises to give them something disgusting. Yahello gleefully hits another switch, announcing that here they come. Outside, Auntie Lou orders her men to continue ramming, refusing to believe they cannot break the door. Instead, a torrent of foul liquid suddenly splashes down over Auntie Lou from above. The entire group is drenched in the brown spray, horrified and confused about what is covering them. Auntie Lou, soaked and furious, screams at Gavin for daring to splash them with water. The others quickly realize from the overpowering stench and filth that it is not water but a disgusting mix of urine and feces, leaving them soaked, freezing and nauseous. Gavin laughs at the sight on his monitor and taunts Auntie Lou to keep cursing because he has plenty more excrement to dump if needed. Worn out and stinking in the cold, the men decide they will freeze to death if they stay and angrily blame Auntie Lou for dragging them into this mess. Back at Hunter's place, someone reports that Auntie Lou's attempt to raid Gavin failed and that her group returned covered in filth. Hunter's companions grudgingly admire Gavin's defensive tricks and argue that this proves he has a substantial stockpile at home. A woman in the group insists they cannot let Gavin off and that if they can just break into his house, his food will let them live comfortably. Hunter, nursing his grudge, vows he will definitely bring Gavin down one day but says they must plan carefully in advance. At Xenia's house, news arrives that Auntie Lou's group failed and Xenia's mother complains she is freezing to death. Xenia resolves to call Zack again for help. On the call, Zack irritably asks why she keeps calling, while Xenia coquettishly pleads for him to come pick her up because she is so cold. Zack snaps that he cannot even save himself right now and abruptly hangs up, leaving Xenia stunned. Xenia tells her mother that Zack said he cannot help and must be in trouble too, raising fears he might abandon them. Her mother panics that they will all die and says they have no choice but to go out and find food themselves. Then she recoils at the idea, wailing that going out into the cold will kill them even faster. Xenia despairs, asking what they should do since they cannot just wait to die. Her mother insists the only hope is to keep begging Gavin, because he is the only one who can save them now, leaving Xenia speechless. Time passes as Gavin's bright, warm house contrasts with the snowy landscape outside. Gavin receives a new message from Xenia where she humbly admits wrongdoing and begs his forgiveness, asking what it will take for him to relent. Smirking, Gavin replies that her condition is to address him as Daddy. Seeing this demand on her phone, Xenia bristles with humiliation and anger. Nonetheless, she storms out with her mother, raging that Gavin is going too far. Her mother urges her to swallow her pride and just call him Daddy since they have nothing left to lose, though Xenia hesitates. The older woman shouts that survival matters more than dignity, and tells Xenia there can be no buts. Xenia, seething but determined, decides she will trick Gavin into opening the door, then punish him once she is safely inside. Relaxing on his couch, Gavin reads her latest message addressing him as Daddy, and smiles in satisfaction. Xenia and her mother cheer that he replied and are certain this time Gavin will finally let them into his house. Instead, Gavin's text mocks her, saying he does not acknowledge such a disobedient daughter, which leaves Xenia stunned. Xenia erupts into a stream of censored curses at Gavin, wishing horrible things upon him. Meanwhile, Hunter rallies his men, confirms their preparations, and vows they will get Gavin this time. At his command, the group sets off from their base. The men march down the corridor toward the exit, intent on heading for Gavin's home. Inside Gavin's house, Yahello watches the surveillance feed and alerts Gavin that Hunter and his gang have appeared at their doorstep again. Gavin vows that this time they will retaliate harshly so others stop seeing them as easy targets. Outside, Hunter and his gang arrive and demand Gavin open the door. Inside, Gavin dismisses Hunter as an idiot while calmly drinking. Hunter's group piles firewood against Gavin's gate, and Hunter threatens that Gavin's chance is over and he will die. Hunter orders his men to douse the wood with gasoline and burn Gavin alive. Gavin and Yahello see the arson attempt. Note the villa is fireproof, while Hunter mocks Gavin and throws a lit object onto the gasoline. The wood ignites in a huge blaze as Hunter and two henchmen watch the fire. One thug nervously notes there is no reaction from inside despite the fire. Another realizes the fire cannot damage the villa because it is made of fireproof materials. Enraged, Hunter orders an impact drill to bore through the house. A long-haired thug volunteers to operate the drill. As he drills the gate, Hunter encourages him to break through so he can deal with Gavin personally. Gavin's little sister reports bad guys are smashing their wall, but Gavin assures her they cannot get in. Gavin declares it is hunting time and he and Yahello decide to teach the attackers a lesson. Gavin arms himself with a bow for the first time, confident it can easily kill at close range. Gavin thinks that as the ice apocalypse continues, supernatural powers may make guns useless, so he must practice with a bow. Outside, Hunter asks if the drilling has broken through yet. The driller senses something wrong and Hunter asks what the problem is. He reports he hit something solid inside the wall and Hunter moves in to inspect. They discover a steel plate reinforcement and curse Gavin for armoring the villa. Hunter despairs that the steel makes the house impossible to penetrate. An arrow suddenly strikes the driller, knocking him to the ground. More arrows rain down, wounding several thugs as Hunter yells for them to take cover from Gavin's ambush. Hunter furiously swears he will definitely kill Gavin. Under heavy arrow fire, Hunter is hit and screams while he and his men flee. The wounded Hunter is helped away by his companions, leaving a bloody trail. 3 badly injured thugs left behind beg their comrades not to abandon them. Gavin observes that 3 enemies remain on the ground while the rest escaped. Gavin tells Yahello that in this weather the escapees with arrow wounds will likely die anyway and asks what to do with the 3 captives. The 3 injured men plead for their lives and blame Hunter for forcing them to attack. Gavin decides to head back, leaving the wounded enemies lying in the snow. When Yahello asks why he spared them, Gavin explains Hunter will not return and the immobile men will soon freeze to death. Yahello adds that since Hunter was also shot, abandoning his own men will sow discord in his group. The 3 wounded thugs feel relieved that Gavin did not finish them off. One realizes they cannot survive long while badly injured in the snow and decides to call Hunter for help. Over the phone they beg Hunter to come back and rescue them. They tell Hunter they are still at Gavin's gate, but the call abruptly disconnects. Confused, they ask what Hunter said and learn that he hung up on them. One horrified thug exclaims that Hunter is abandoning them. The men curse Hunter for using them, and then leaving them to die. One concludes their only hope of survival is to beg Gavin for mercy. They start shouting toward the villa, saying they are freezing and offering to become Gavin's slaves if he saves them. Back at Hunter's villa, Hunter yells for help removing the arrow from his wound. His long-haired henchman rips it out while Hunter screams in agony. Inside, 2 women observe Hunter's failure and say he has been defeated again. The women admit they underestimated Gavin's strength. Hunter angrily orders the women to stop staring and go boil hot water to clean his wound. Frightened, they agree and hurry off to do as he says. In the kitchen, one woman panics that Hunter is no match for Gavin and wonders what they should do. The other says they must find an escape plan instead of relying entirely on Hunter. The first protests that they are trapped with no food or exit, unable to move forward or back. The purple-haired woman decides that Gavin's apartment is currently the safest place in the neighborhood. She proposes going to Gavin despite their bad history, believing that if they apologize as former classmates he might not abandon them. Meanwhile, Gavin and Yahello prepare 2 snowmobiles, pleased at how convenient they are for travel in the deep snow. Gavin puts on his helmet and says they are going to check on Yahello's parents. At Yahello's parents' home, someone spots Gavin leaving on a snowmobile and excitedly points it out to Xenia. Xenia, filled with resentment, vows to one day steal everything Gavin has. Riding through the city, Gavin notes the snow is at least 2 meters deep and the streets are deserted. They spot a supermarket ahead and decide to investigate it. Inside the store, Gavin and Yahello enter cautiously. They find the shelves overturned and empty, realizing the place has been completely looted. Gavin reflects that after nearly a month of the ice apocalypse most people have exhausted their stored food. Yahello suddenly shouts a warning to Gavin. Gavin reacts instantly, kicking down a man who tried to ambush them with a bat. Yahello pulls a gun on the wounded attacker, threatening to kill him for the sneak attack while Gavin tells him not to act rashly. The desperate man insists he had no choice, saying he has a family to feed and cannot survive. Yahello is startled to hear he has a family. The man calls out his hidden family members and tells them to come out. A heavily pregnant woman and 2 small children step from behind the shelves, looking frightened. The man explains his wife is pregnant, they have 2 kids, they already ate all the food here, and he felt forced into robbery. Gavin points out he could have simply asked them for food instead of attacking. The man falters, unable to answer. His wife and children fall to their knees, begging Gavin to spare them and let them go. Gavin calls Yahello over to discuss how to handle the family. As they walk among the empty aisles, Yahello notices a strange odor. Gavin identifies it as the smell of blood and wonders where it is coming from. They discover blood-stained human skeletons, horrifying them. Gavin confirms his suspicion that the family has been killing and eating people and tells Yahello to leave, making Yahello vomit in disgust. Furious, Yahello declares he wants to kill the cannibal family. Gavin asks whether he intends to kill even the pregnant woman and children, and Yahello says he would target only the man. Gavin argues that killing the man would doom the pregnant wife and kids, leaving them no way to survive. Yahello rages that the whole family are monsters who survived by eating others and might have killed many victims. Gavin coldly notes that in such desperate times more people will cross such moral lines and such incidents will become common. Later, Gavin and Yahello ride back to Yahello's parents' house on their snowmobiles. Arriving, Gavin sees the front door wide open in the freezing weather and senses something is wrong as Yahello calls for his parents. Inside, armed looters rejoice over the huge stash of supplies they have found in Yahello's parents' home. Their leader Bao praises the haul and promises everyone extra meat when they return. Another thug asks Bao what to do with the captured elderly couple, Yahello's parents. Bao grins wickedly and orders his men to kill the couple. A henchman aims a gun at them and agrees to carry out the killings. Yahello bursts in and yells for him to stop. Yahello's mother frantically screams for her son to run. The gunman instead shoots Yahello's mother dead at point-blank range. Yahello screams for his mother in horror. Yahello's father tackles the gunman, shouting for Yahello to escape. The thug angrily calls the old man suicidal and shoots him multiple times. Yahello cries out in anguish as his father is gunned down. The killer turns his gun on Yahello, saying he will send their whole family to death together. Gavin suddenly charges in and slashes the gunman, severing his arm and disarming him. The main thug screams in pain. Gavin stands with a bloody knife as remaining thugs demand to know who he is. Gavin answers that he is their Grim Reaper and fatally stabs another attacker. Bao panics and orders his men to kill Gavin. 2 armed thugs rush Gavin, shouting for him to die. Gavin swiftly cuts one down before he can shoot. The remaining thugs are stunned by how quickly Gavin killed their comrades. One shouts for the others to run, trying to flee. Gavin cuts him down from behind as well. Gavin, blood-streaked, warns that anyone who moves will be chopped up and fed to dogs. The last 2 thugs drop to their knees and beg Gavin to spare their lives. Yahello rushes to his mortally wounded parents, crying out to them. His mother, barely alive, is relieved Yahello is safe and reaches for him. Yahello's dying father tells him his parents are going first, and warns him to be careful of Lee Santion from Mang village. Yahello clings to his parents' bodies, sobbing that he does not want his father to die. Consumed by rage, Yahello begs Gavin to leave the remaining enemies to him. Yahello repeatedly stabs one of the kneeling thugs, swearing to kill him. The last thug protests he was just following orders and pleads to be released. Yahello rejects the plea and raises the knife, shouting for him to go to hell. Gavin stops Yahello and holds the thug so he can question him. Gavin demands to know who sent them, and the terrified man reveals they were sent by Mang village's chief Lee. Gavin is surprised to hear the name of village chief Lee of Mang village. Yahello explains Mang village is a nearby urban village his father once supported, and that Lee Santion used to work for his dad, making their betrayal shocking. The captive boasts that Mang village is now the dominant power in the area and begs Gavin to let him go, promising silence. Gavin scoffs at the idea of letting him go, saying that will never happen. The man warns that if Gavin kills him, Mang village will hunt Gavin down. Gavin rips off the man's clothes and says it is actually Mang village who will not be forgiven. Terrified and half-naked, the man demands to know what Gavin intends to do. Gavin declares that killing him quickly is too easy and that he deserves to slowly freeze to death, then throws him outside. The man begs again for mercy as the cold bites into him. Gavin kicks him away into the snow, ordering him to get lost. Shivering outside, the man begs Gavin to kill him quickly rather than let him freeze. Time passes and the man completely freezes into a block of ice. Yahello, burning with hatred, tells Gavin he wants revenge and urges they head to Mang village. They ride until Mang village's gate, where hanged corpses show the village is ahead. Inspecting the fortified entrance, Gavin notes that Mang village has turned the place into a fortress. Yahello remarks that the villagers have committed countless atrocities, as seen by the bodies hanging from the gate. Two Mang village men ride up on snowmobiles toward Gavin and Yahello. Gavin notes the village also owns snowmobiles. The riders confront them and demand to know who they are. Gavin and Yahello claim to be guests of Mang village, prompting the riders to ask who invited them. Gavin calmly answers that village chief Lee Santion invited them. The riders angrily say Gavin is lying, explaining that Lee left long ago with a biotech company and is not there. Before they can react further, Gavin abruptly shoots both riders in the head. With their bodies on the ground, Gavin stands holding the smoking gun. People on the wall notice the commotion and demand to know who is down there. Alarmed guards realize their comrades have been killed and curse the intruder for daring to cause trouble in Mang village. Assessing the situation, Gavin concludes they cannot break in today, and Yahello suggests retreating to devise a new plan. As they pull away on their snowmobiles, someone from the village yells at them not to run and fires shots after them. Gavin and Yahello speed their snowmobiles back toward home. At Gavin's villa, the gathered neighbors happily exclaim that Gavin has returned, relieved that their savior is back from the freezing outside. Gavin is shocked to see a large crowd gathered outside. The crowd urgently asks Gavin if he brought back food and supplies from his trip. Gavin angrily tells the people blocking him to move aside. A man reminds Gavin he was supposed to find supplies for everyone and demands to know if he did. Gavin retorts that he never agreed to search for supplies for them. The man suspiciously asks what Gavin was doing outside if not gathering supplies for the group. Gavin dismisses the question, saying his activities are none of their business, and orders them to move. The elder angrily scolds Gavin for being disrespectful to his seniors. Another villager desperately presses Gavin again, saying they are starving, and Gavin replies that he found nothing. The desperate villager says he does not believe Gavin and demands to search him. Gavin furiously shoves the man away, telling him to get lost. Gavin's friend frankly tells the crowd they never went looking for supplies and tells everyone to disperse. The people protest that without food they will die soon and announce they will take Gavin's snowmobiles to search for food themselves. Gavin sneers at the word commandeer and calls them shameless. The scheming woman suggests that if Gavin will not lend the snowmobiles, he should hand over the food he supposedly hoarded at home. The group threatens to camp at Gavin's door until he shares his supplies. Gavin, annoyed, tells Yahello they should ignore the crowd and go back inside. The woman grabs Gavin and yells that he cannot leave until he gives them food. Gavin violently flings her away and tells her to let go. The woman theatrically cries that Gavin is beating a helpless woman and demands instant noodles as compensation, or she will publicly curse him daily. Other men accuse Gavin of going too far and question his manhood for hitting a woman. The woman orders Gavin to apologize and help her into his house to recuperate. Gavin silently extends his hand toward her, appearing to comply. The woman smugly tells him to help her up and then cook her a good meal. Instead, Gavin suddenly strikes her hard, sending her flying. Dazed and clutching her face, she screams in disbelief at what he is doing. Gavin coldly says she accused him of hitting her, so he will make the accusation true. He mercilessly beats her on the ground while onlookers stare in shock. As he continues the beating, the woman begs him over and over to stop. Gavin smirks and says he will not stop just because she asked. Bruised and swollen, the woman screams to the bystanders for help, saying her face is ruined. Some men shout that Gavin is committing intentional assault and urge everyone to attack him together. One of them grabs Gavin from behind and berates him for bullying a woman. Gavin replies that if bullying women is wrong, then he will simply bully the man instead. Gavin lands a powerful kick on the man, knocking him back. He then pummels the same man repeatedly, leaving him bloodied. The watching villagers are stunned and frightened by Gavin's brutality. The beaten man admits he was wrong and begs Gavin to stop hitting him. Gavin tells him they brought this on themselves and orders the entire crowd to get lost. As the villagers retreat, they curse Gavin for being heartless and unwilling to help while they starve. In the neighborhood chat group, people complain that Gavin is hoarding supplies and refuse to share or lend his snowmobiles. Reading the chat at home, Gavin scoffs and wonders if his neighbors are crazy. He replies in the group, bluntly asking if he owes them anything. The group members react indignantly, saying Gavin's message means he does not care whether they live or die. Gavin laughs and says he is not their father and has no obligation to worry about their survival. Elsewhere, a furious resident proposes expelling Gavin from the community and dividing his alleged stockpile among themselves. Gavin reflects that in his previous life these shameless people caused him endless trouble, and this time he intends to teach them a harsh lesson. His phone rings with an unfamiliar number. Curious, Gavin answers the call, wondering who it might be. A menacing voice confirms he is speaking to Gavin. The caller asks if Gavin knows who he is, but Gavin bluntly replies that he does not. The man proudly identifies himself as Lee Santion from Mang village and assumes Gavin must be scared. Gavin mockingly says he is only surprised the caller is such an idiot. Lee Santion explodes in anger and demands Gavin repeat the insult. Gavin tells Lee to stop posturing in front of Grandpa Gavin and to get to the point. Lee grudgingly praises Gavin's courage for having killed his subordinates. Gavin jokingly asks if Lee called just to compliment him. Lee roars that Gavin killed his men and swears Gavin is a dead man walking. Gavin, enraged, shouts back that Lee murdered his friend's parents and vows to take Lee's life. Lee demands Gavin's location, and Gavin answers that he is at Hu family village north of the city. Lee swears that when he arrives he will force Gavin to kneel and call him Grandpa. Gavin smirks at the phone and says that if he does not show up, then he will accept being Lee's grandson. At the gym, Lee Santion summons his men. He orders them to gather a crew to head to Hu family village, and they ask if they should bring weapons. Lee tells them to bring weapons and even more men, since Gavin and his companion have guns. Back home, Gavin tells Yahello they are heading out. When Yahello asks where, Gavin replies that they are going to raid Lee Santion's den. The two ride snowmobiles across the snow toward the city. As they travel, Gavin confirms with Yahello that the building ahead used to be a police station. Yahello says it was once a major municipal police station. Gavin decides they should stop there to search for weapons. They arrive at the station and approach the entrance, planning to go inside. Gavin kicks in the glass door to gain entry. Inside they discover frozen corpses of police officers who died at their posts when the sudden disaster struck. Gavin notes that the catastrophe came too fast for government agencies to respond. They locate the door to the police weapons warehouse. Yahello strains at the door but reports that it will not open. Gavin tells him to step aside and readies his gun. Gavin shoots out the lock multiple times. The heavy doors swing open, revealing stacks of weapons and ammunition. Yahello exclaims that they have hit the jackpot with the sheer number of weapons. They discover sniper rifles among the cache and feel they chose the right place. Yahello also finds a crate full of detonators and explosives. Gavin says the explosives will be useful and orders Yahello to take them all. After storing everything in his dimensional space, Gavin announces that they have looted the station and should leave. As they prepare to depart, Yahello warns Gavin that someone else is approaching. Gavin realizes other survivors also came here seeking weapons. A band of armed men arrive at the station, declaring that this is the place they are looking for. One of them, addressed as Brother Hao, is told that there are already people inside. Brother Hao sees Gavin's group and notes that someone clearly beat them to the weapons. Another thug runs in and confirms the warehouse is completely emptied. Brother Hao asks Gavin and Yahello directly if they took the guns. Gavin feigns innocence, asking if they look like people who got any weapons. Brother Hao says they do not appear armed but insists on searching them. Gavin flatly refuses to be searched. Brother Hao introduces himself, says he runs the nearby fitness center, and claims he will let them go if they have no weapons, but Gavin refuses again. One of Hao's men insults Gavin for acting arrogant without a gun and threatens to beat him. Gavin answers with a sudden kick, knocking the man sprawling and telling him to scram. Furious, Brother Hao orders his men to kill Gavin and drag their bodies back for roasting. The thugs rush forward to attack Gavin and Yahello. Gavin draws his handgun and says he has clearly been too lenient. His attackers panic when they see the gun, accusing him of deceiving them. Gavin aims at them and threatens to send them to meet their maker. One of the men begs Gavin to calm down and talk things out. Gavin shoots him dead without hesitation. He states that he is done being nice to shameless people. The remaining thugs are horrified that he actually killed someone. Gavin promptly shoots another man, killing him as well. Terrified, the rest shout that this kid really dares to shoot and try to flee. Gavin guns down two more as they run. Brother Hao collapses to his knees, begging for his life and admitting he picked the wrong target. Gavin coldly calls him an idiot. Gavin promptly shoots Brother Hao in the head. Gavin and Yahello walk past the corpses, and Gavin tells his companion it is time to go. Meanwhile, Lee Santion and his gang race snowmobiles toward Hu family village, vowing to kill every last person there. A subordinate asks if they will spare young women, and Lee replies they can take any they fancy but must kill them afterward, since Mang village does not support freeloaders. Other riders laugh that they know the rules and eagerly agree to go wipe out Hu family village. Lee urges them to speed up, estimating it will take a few hours to reach the village. Watching Mang village's raiding party depart, Gavin observes their impressive snowmobile force and notes that fighting them head-on would be difficult. With most fighters gone, Gavin and Yahello decide to infiltrate Mang village and destroy Lee Santion's base. They arrive at Mang village's main gate and note that it is tightly sealed and hard to breach. Gavin grins and says it is simple, since they now have dynamite. Guards atop the village wall keep watch, unaware of the approaching threat. They notice an unmanned snowmobile speeding toward the gate, and wonder what it is. The guards are puzzled that the snowmobile is moving by itself and speculate something might be loaded on it. The unmanned snowmobile races forward, piled high with dynamite. Realizing what it carries, a guard panics and yells that it looks like explosives. The dynamite-laden vehicle detonates, blowing apart the front gate in a massive explosion. The guards are hurled away, shouting in shock and asking who dared cause chaos in Mang village. Gavin and Yahello roar through the new opening on their snowmobiles. The two gate guards recognize them as the same kids from before and shout to kill them. While driving, Gavin raises his gun and takes aim. He shoots both guards in the head. Their bodies fall from the shattered wall as Gavin and Yahello speed deeper into the village. Inside Mang village, armed men respond to the intrusion, yelling threats as they ready their guns. Gavin swiftly guns down the responding guards as he rides past. One surviving man screams to notify the village chief. Gavin shoots him in the leg, dropping him to the ground. The wounded man pleads that he is just a good citizen, not one of Lee's men, and begs Gavin not to kill him. Gavin points the gun at him and demands to know where Lee Santion stores all his supplies. Under duress, the man points out a warehouse where the supplies are kept. Gavin then executes him with a shot to the head. Gavin and Yahello enter the huge warehouse packed with food and goods. Yahello marvels at the sheer quantity of supplies Lee Santion must have stolen, and Gavin says it all belongs to them now. Gavin uses his ability to magically collect and store all the supplies. After stripping the warehouse, Gavin and Yahello ride their snowmobiles away from Mang village. Yahello laughs that Lee Santion will be furious when he discovers what happened. Gavin calmly states that this is only the beginning of his plan to weaken Mang village and eventually take Lee down. Meanwhile, Lee Santion's raiding party reaches the buried Hu family village, where his men question how Gavin could be there when no one is left alive. Realizing the village is deserted, Lee angrily concludes that Gavin tricked them. The older man answers a phone call. He is shocked by what he hears. Panicking, he rushes over a frozen lake on a snowmobile and orders the three men to retreat immediately. The ice has been shattered open, leaving a gaping hole. Staring at the destroyed area, the man struggles to comprehend how such devastation occurred. Enraged, he vows never to forgive the kid responsible and swears to make him die painfully. He commands his subordinates to track down the two kids and discover where they live within 3 days. Scene shifts to a peaceful upscale house in the snowy neighborhood. Inside, Gavin lounges on the couch reading a message from Sharon asking to meet since they are neighbors. On his phone, Sharon's request is shown beside Gavin's curt reply that he has no time. Gavin casually holds his phone, thinking about the situation. A chubby friend tells Gavin that Sharon and Jolene have arrived, showing them on the security monitor. Outside, Sharon cheerfully calls up to Gavin, asking him to open the door. Gavin opens the door with an annoyed expression and asks why the two girls came. Sharon nervously claims that she and Jolene came just to visit Gavin. Gavin coldly asks if they are done staring at him, startling the two. He then tells them that since they have finished looking, they should leave. Sharon anxiously cries out for him to wait. Sharon argues that as classmates and close neighbors they should help each other. Gavin smirks and asks what kind of help they could possibly offer him. Blushing, Sharon suggests that she and Jolene will obey any of his instructions and implies total submission. Gavin agrees, declaring that he will act as their master and that they will be like his dogs. Instead of protesting, the girls giggle, praise his domineering attitude, and want to go inside because they are freezing. Gavin denies them entry and orders them to leave the neighborhood to find food for him. When Sharon hesitates, Gavin reminds her that there should be no issue obeying a command from their self-proclaimed master. Jolene worries that with the heavy snow they might freeze to death if they go beyond the neighborhood. Gavin slaps Jolene for questioning him and angrily asks if she dares defy his order. Jolene clutches her cheek in shock, unable to believe he hit her. Sharon pleads with Gavin, saying he must be joking because they cannot realistically find food outside. Gavin responds by slapping Sharon as well, shouting that he is serious and ordering them to move. Holding her face, Sharon incredulously asks if he truly expects them to do this. Gavin mocks them as worthless and says that if they cannot even find food, they are not qualified to be his dogs. Humiliated but resigned, Sharon grumbles and tells Jolene to go so they can carry out his demand. Walking away, the girls complain that if they could find supplies on their own they would never have sought Gavin's help and admit they underestimated how difficult he is. Jolene anxiously asks what they should do now, since Hunter has already run out of food and will not last long. Sharon insists they still need Hunter's protection and decides they must return to him first. Back at Hunter's place, he angrily demands to know where the two girls went. Sharon explains that they went to look for Gavin, surprising Hunter. She lies that because Gavin hurt Hunter, she and Jolene bravely went to confront him on Hunter's behalf. Hunter, tense, asks what Gavin said to them. Sharon claims Gavin was arrogant, refused any compensation, and even slapped both of them. Jolene tearfully adds that Gavin is a monster, and that they barely escaped before he could sexually assault them, begging Hunter to defend them. Outraged, Hunter vows that since he and Gavin are mortal enemies he will definitely kill Gavin. Hunter rallies his men, ordering them to come with him, while one follower asks where they are headed.